Chapter 214. For Shishi's name, the word yang. In yang she was not bad, and the little girl learned it quickly. However, when it came to the word Shishi encountered a problem. Under the guidance of her father, the little girl, who was clever with her hands, understood it easily. However, because the word she was too complicated, she would always forget the details here and there. Don't write the turn of the word s directly. You have to write it stroke by stroke. Look at me. Yang Yi was also very patient, and he tirelessly corrected the details for Shishi. Even so, Shishi learned the two words for almost an hour, which was longer than the time she spent doing homework every day. Come, try it yourself. Yang Yi let go of his daughter's hand and encouraged her. Without her father's guidance, Shishi was not used to it at first. Although she could still write according to the example above, the strokes were crooked. However, the improvement was obvious. After a while, she gradually became proficient. The two words yang shi were also written in a good way. It was almost there. Did such a small child expect her to write like a calligrapher? Yang Yi rubbed Shishi's little head, who was sitting at the children's desk and writing, and said softly, "Okay, Shishi, you've written very well. Go and play for a while. Look, Xiao Guai has come to call you." Xiao Guai, who was closest to Shishi, was still curious about why the little master did not come to play with him for so long. He raised his tail and wandered around nearby. From time to time he would raise his head and look at the little master. Previously, it had always come over to rub against Cece's little feet, but it had been chased away by the hateful poop picker several times. Little Guai could only express its anticipation in this way, as if it was saying, "Little master, can you see me? I'm here. I'm here." However, Shishi did not want to play with him today. The little girl, who had been thinking about the whole time, had just been liberated. She hurriedly pestered her father to tell her a story. Papa, quickly tell me the story of the child monster. Is it powerful or not?" Since Shishi performed very well today, Yang Yi simply gave the little girl a reward. He moved and jumped to an empty place in the living room. Shido, who was playing in the living room, was startled and jumped to the sofa with a meow. Speaking of which, Sun Wukong and Zhu Beiji found the fire cloud cave. They beat up the little monster until it ran back crying. It cried with the little monster. The little monster had a white face and red lips. His hair was tied up in a bun, and there was a red cinnabar between his eyebrows. As Yang Yi gestured, he narrated the story vividly. She couldn't help but hold her breath. Her watery eyes stared fixedly at her father as she listened to the story with rapt attention. Xiao Guai, who was at the side, tilted his head and glanced at the hateful poop picker. When he realized that he seemed to be ignoring him, he secretly wandered around his little master and stuck to him. However, today, Xiao Guai had no way to snatch the little master's favor from Red Boy. The next day, it seems that everyone has finished writing. Teacher Mu has already seen everyone's efforts. However, there are still a few children who have to perform. Nan Zhaoyu, your handwriting is very beautiful. And Yang Luoqi, you can write your own name independently. Very good. Lastly, the teacher has to specially praise Yang Shi, who is going to receive the little red flower today. Yang Shi has made great progress. She can write such a complicated name completely and beautifully. Shouldn't everyone give her a round of applause? Under the uneven applause and the envious gazes of her friends, especially Lan Xian, who couldn't write the word Xian, no matter how hard she tried, she puffed out her small chest and received a little red flower in front of Teacher Mu. This was the first little red flower that she received. When she was learning to dance, although she danced quite well, the one who received the little red flower was Yang Luoqi. This honor was something that she had been looking forward to for a long time. Wearing the little red flower, the little girl's joyful smile almost never stopped. Even when she was sleeping in the afternoon, the little girl's lips curled up in her sleep, as if she was dreaming of something happy. However, extreme joy begets sorrow. She insisted on wearing the little red flower to take an afternoon nap. In the end, when she woke up in the afternoon, the little red flower was squashed by her. In addition, she was angry when she woke up. The little girl cried sadly. Woo-woo. Perhaps there was regret, perhaps there was unwillingness, but when it gathered in her heart, it was a sadness that couldn't be resolved. This made Shishi cry in Teacher Shun's arms. No matter how Teacher Shun coaxed her, it was useless. Shishi's eyes were swollen from crying. Her tear-stained face made people feel pity for her. Fortunately, Teacher Shun carried Shishi outside under the shade of a tree to comfort her. Otherwise, Lan Xian and Yang Luoqi's melancholy golden beans would fall from their eyes. It was Teacher Mu who cut the unused red paper and made a little red flower for Shishi on the spot. Only then did the little girl stop crying and smile. This time, after experiencing the painful loss, Shishi was even more careful to protect the little red flower pinned to her chest. She didn't let anyone touch it. In the afternoon, Yang Yi went to pick up Shishi. The little girl, who had already been through the rain, ran over with a smile on her face. She couldn't wait to show her little red flower to her father. Papa, look, come down and have a look. Shishi's name is here. Hee. Teacher Mu asked Shishi to write it. Only Shishi's flower has a name. Shishi took her father's hand and asked him to squat down and look at the little red flower on her chest. Let me see. Yang Yi also attached great importance to his daughter's first reward, so he reached out his hand at once. Oh, you can't touch it. It will be broken. Shishi pouted and quickly stepped back to protect the little red flower. Well, Papa won't touch it. I'll just take a look. Look at Shishi's name. Yang Yi said quickly. Only then did Shishi agree. However, Shishi's name was a little covered by the petals in the middle. He couldn't see it if he didn't open it. After all, he was a father, and the treatment he received was different from others. He didn't know what kind of mental struggle the little girl went through, but she finally said hesitantly, Then you can touch Papa, just a little. You can't break it. Looking at the little girl's treasured look, Yang Yi knew that he had to get her a small glass box and put it in it. Otherwise, Shishi would be heartbroken if it was broken at home. However, even if Shishi didn't care about it, Yang Yi would keep it. After all, it was the first small prize his daughter had won. Papa, let's go back. You have to take a picture of me and send it to Mom. Sitting in the car, Shishi couldn't stop. She lowered her head and gently fiddled with the folds of the little red flower as she spoke. Well, of course, I have to let your mother know about such a happy event. Yang Yi turned the steering wheel and said with a smile. Chapter 215. Shishi's bedtime stories quietly became popular in Guangzhou and gradually drove sales in the surrounding cities. Some cities even had a hard time finding the book. However, due to the chain bookstore's information blackout, the people of Sahara Publishing House only found out that Shishi's bedtime stories had long been out of stock and that readers could not find a way to buy it. It's bad enough that those bastards didn't give us a restock notice, but even the state-run bookstores are fooling us? Fu Jun slammed his cup on the table and asked angrily. His subordinate reported with a bitter face. No, the state-run bookstores are fine, but their prices are a bit high. Sales really can't increase. This was the conclusion they reached after an overnight investigation. Most of the people who bought these fairy tale books were ordinary mothers and women who took care of household expenses. Their attitude toward buying books was the same as going to the market to buy groceries. They were greatly affected by the price. Therefore, they would not go to the state-run bookstores, and the chain bookstores were out of stock every day. Fu Jun had a headache, and so did the people of Sahara Publishing House. Only now did they know that Yu Qian's column recommendation last week had brought a surge in sales of the book, but it was too late. There were only a few days left before the first month's protection period. How could they have the opportunity to create enough data for the chain bookstores and state-run bookstores to keep it on the shelves? They missed this opportunity because the relationship between Sahara Publishing House and the Chain Bookstore Alliance was not as good as Fu Jun imagined. They could not rely on the two books Soldier's Assault and Drawing Sword to break the other party's blockade. Behind the scenes, there was still an invisible force suppressing the efforts of the small publishing houses. The other party was like an iron chain connecting boats and blocking the river. If they wanted to break through, they could only burn their boats and attack with more ferocious fire. Thinking back to the source of the craze, Fu Jun had an idea. He summoned two groups of people from Sahara Publishing House and Sahara Online Mall for a meeting. First of all, the customer service department will do a training. In the future, if anyone asks where they can buy our books, tell them to go to the Sahara Online Mall. It's cheap and convenient, and it can be delivered home. Then advertise for me. First, go and do a survey to see which newspapers our readers read the most. Then advertise in them. Buy an entire page and only use one couplet. The first line is, Shishi's bedtime story good. The second line is, Sahara online shopping mall cheap. The horizontal line is, for the sake of the child worth it. One of his subordinates asked nervously, Boss, isn't the cost of this advertisement a little too high? Nationwide, you can't do an advertisement without at least a few million. It will be huge, but this is also a good opportunity to expand the reputation of our Sahara online mall. It's worth a few million. Fu Jun waved his hand generously. In fact, the Sahara online shopping mall had recently realized a profit, and the profit was not small. Fu Jun had the money to carry out a few big operations. He turned his head and said to the employees of the online shopping mall, You also have to seize the time to enrich our shopping mall's products. The few publishing houses that I asked you to talk to before, ask them to send their books to our warehouse. Also, expand your thinking. Don't just sell books. You can also sell infant-related products on the shelves. The suppliers have to control the quality. This time, Fu Jun decided to do whatever it took. He wanted to follow the momentum of Shishi's bedtime story and fight a big battle to make a comeback. Yang Yi didn't care about how his books were selling at all. What he cared about was what Shishi would wear to the freshman party tonight to watch Guaziyi's show. I want to wear a dress. The little girl jumped on the bed. Although she was wearing a small nightgown after taking a shower, the little girl was still looking forward to the princess dresses she liked in the closet. I'm not wearing a dress today. It will be a little cold outside at night. Yang Yi rummaged through the closet and took out a pair of denim suspenders that he had bought for her at Haihong Mall. The light blue material was soft and the texture was not as rough as the jeans that adults wore. What do you think of this? Yang Yi thought that Shishi would wear this. A t-shirt with a layer of jeans covering her stomach like a coat would make her feel much warmer. This looks good too. Shishi immediately changed her mind. She happily gestured on her body. There's a pocket on my belly. I like it too. Blue skin and a pocket on her stomach. Yang Yi didn't know why he thought of a famous anime character. Yes. After Journey to the West, he would tell Shishi the story of the blue fatty. Putting the blue fatty aside, Yang Yi found a t-shirt for Shishi that could match her jeans. The little girl jumped down from the closet and pulled out a short-sleeved t-shirt of the same style as Big Bear Cub with her father. It was her favorite. Black short-sleeved shirt, white body, and a black collar around the neck. Although the cartoon image on it wasn't a panda, didn't this t-shirt look like Cece's Big Bear Cat baby? Just wear this. Yang Yi asked, Will it be cold? After all, it was autumn. It's not cold, it's not cold. Wear this, wear this. The excited little girl began to take off her nightgown and put on the t-shirt of the same style as the panda. Yang Yi had to help his daughter put on the t-shirt. It was actually a little troublesome for girls to put on clothes. He took out her thin little arms, and that was not all. He gently pulled out her long hair that was caught in the back of the shirt and combed the messy hair with a comb. When he put on the overalls for Shishi, Yang Yi was surprised to find that his daughter had grown taller. The suspenders that were originally able to cover her knees now revealed her small knees. Fortunately, the t-shirt of the same style as the panda was not bought too long ago. Otherwise, Shishi would not fit. Thinking about it, Yang Yi was afraid that he would have to get rid of a batch of clothes for the little girl, and then buy a batch of new clothes. The burden of raising a child was quite heavy. Fortunately, Yang Yi was not short of money now. Yang Yi put on a pair of white socks for Shishi's feet, and then put on a pair of small magenta sneakers with a white star pattern. Then, he went to the mirror for the little girl to show off. When this little girl put on the t-shirt of the same style as the panda without any pants, she could not help but want to look in the mirror. Do you want me to tie up your hair? Yang Yi sat on the edge of the bed and gently stroked Shishi's long hair as he asked. The little girl's hair was very good. It was black, thick, and glossy. It felt like flowing clouds sliding through his fingertips, and it was very comfortable. No. Shishi waved at her father, the smile on her face still not disappearing. Shishi's outfit was not bad, especially the overalls. It was like a finishing touch, setting off the little girl's baby fat little face, and making her look very cute. Yang Yi dressed his daughter up meticulously, but he dressed as usual. He even wore a pair of large cold slippers, freewheeling. Big brother Yang, we have to hurry, or it will start. Ding Xiang was anxiously waiting for them downstairs. She had changed in the shop early and did not need to put on makeup, so she naturally waited for a long time. She had always been very principled and did not want to be late. Chapter 216. Although Jiang City Media University claimed to be a comprehensive university, its real trump card was the many art schools. Therefore, its freshman party also attracted many non-freshmen, and even non-native teachers and students. After all, the freshmen of the film school were already bright stars. As for the others, you didn't even know if there would be a future big star playing a big tree in a certain program that you had watched. The freshmen's party was held in Jiangchuan's open-air stadium. It was said that the stadium, which could accommodate thousands of people, had a stage set up today. Tens of thousands of small stools were placed on the stage, and there were even a few cameras set up. There were photography experts who would record these programs and make them into exquisite programs to be broadcast on the campus's internal television station. Yang Yi, led by Ding Xiang, quickly arrived at the scene. After verifying the admission tickets, they smoothly entered the inner field. Passers-by without tickets could only watch from the edge of the outer field. "Papa, my feet are not feeling well." The little girl stepped on the turf in the inner field and was pricked a few times by the hard grass leaves. Her delicate skin couldn't bear it. "Come, Papa will carry you." Yang Yi bent down to pick up Shishi and gently rubbed the little girl's legs. Under the guidance of the staff, Yang Yi and Ding Xiang found their seats. The seats were a little remote. After all, they were not freshmen and they were holding invitation tickets. But fortunately, the quality of the students present was good. Almost all of them sat steadily on the small stools. With Yang Yi's height, there was no big problem for him to see the stage clearly. The only problem was that Yang Yi's legs were a little long. It was not comfortable to sit like this. "When is Uncle Guo going to perform?" Shishi asked expectantly before the party started. "His program is the 16th one. It's about the middle to the end. It should be past 9 o'clock when it's his turn." Ding Xiang had a program schedule in her hand. "Let me see." Yang Yi was interested and wanted to take a closer look. "Hey." With the bright lights on the stage, Yang Yi saw a familiar name. "Thousand Miles Chuanshu. Aren't they seniors? Why is he performing on stage?" Ding Xiang didn't care about gossip. She didn't even know who Qianli Chuanshu was. How could she answer Yang Yi's question? On the other hand, Shishi excitedly stretched out her little head and said, "Let me have a look too. Papa, let me have a look too." "Can you read it?" Yang Yi handed it to her with a smile. The girl looked at it for a while, but she didn't understand. She just pointed out the surname of one of the students. "This one is the same as Shishi." The freshman gala finally began. The host team was very luxurious. There were 4 men and 4 women. They were dressed in well-ironed suits and gorgeous evening gowns. They looked like they could compete with the television station's New Year's Eve party. In fact, it was really like the New Year's Eve party. The opening dance was choreographed by the new students of the dance academy. The girls danced very amazingly, and the second program was a tight singing of songs. One performer after another appeared on the stage and sang half a song in succession. It was a bit too much for the eyes to take in. Then, the 2 hosts came out and made a transition before announcing the name of the next program. However, it was still singing. This time it was a solo, and it was the kind that could sing a complete song. Before the singer came out, there was a burst of cheers from the audience, and most of them were girls. "Tang Kai Tai." Ding Xiang couldn't help but call out his name in a low voice. Yang Yi saw a handsome boy walk onto the stage with a microphone. He was wearing a white suit and looked like a Prince Charming. He attracted the attention of almost all the girls present. "Who is he?" Yang Yi asked Ding Xiang curiously. "He is a new student of the Film Academy. I saw him at the orientation. I heard that he started acting in movies when he was very young." Ding Xiang said to Yang Yi. Her memory was not bad, but she still couldn't distinguish the difference between movies and TV series. Tang Kaitai sang a fast song and danced a cha-cha with the female backup dancers, which attracted a burst of excited cheers from the audience. However, Yang Yi shook his head slightly after hearing it. Her singing was mediocre. Her voice was clear and a little distinguishable. Furthermore, she had some singing skills. However, there was a lot of scratches and her breathing was not long enough. After she danced for a while, she was almost out of breath. Her singing was terrible. Even if Yang Yi hadn't used his internal energy to expand his vocal range, he could still beat this guy who relied on his fame and handsomeness to win the cheers. At this time, the director of the gala, Du Yuanlei, who was sitting at the front of the stage, frowned secretly. She regretted letting Tang Kaitai on this program. His singing was just average, and he even played tricks. In the end, his singing got worse. Phew. Du Yuanlei sighed gloomily. She also knew that it was useless to regret. The school had told her to take care of Tang Kaitai. Moreover, Tang Kaitai was experienced in dealing with people. As soon as he came up, he called her senior sister. Even if she didn't like Tang Kaitai's program, she had no right to reject it. If I were an independent director, would I not have to be restrained like this? Du Yuanlei was a little envious of some big directors, such as Director Feng, who had been famous for a long time, and Director Chen Fengchen, who was highly respected. However, these thoughts were just thoughts. Which of those big directors who meant what they said didn't endure a long period of hardship before they became successful? What qualifications did she have now to get the treatment of these big directors? Du Yuanlei continued to look at the stage, but her attention was on the reaction of the audience below. The next program alternated between singing and dancing, and from time to time, there would be music programs. After all, not every student was a professional performer. These performances from various departments and specializations were of varying quality. Du Yuanlei could only stagger the arrangements as much as possible. After one or two mediocre performances, there would definitely be a wonderful professional performance. The reaction of the audience below the stage also confirmed her idea. This kind of surprise from time to time made the audience not fall into a state of boredom. After the climax, there was a buffer period, which allowed them to shout more intensely in the next round. Unknowingly, the program was already halfway through. The host on the stage was enthusiastically introducing a group. They are the representative of a student group. They are the best example of ordinary fans embarking on the road of dreams. Qianli Chuanshu, a folk singer group formed by Lu Xiaoshu from the School of Architecture and Miao Chuan from the School of Electronic Engineering. Because of a street performance, they were spotted by a talent scout. Not long ago, they were signed by Xiangnan's Ronghua Agency. After the news spread, they have become the new generation of campus idols of Jiangchuan. Du Yuanlei looked at the two people who were about to go on stage with interest. This group could be said to be the biggest news of Jiangchuan this month. The series of labels that the host just mentioned was the reason why they were so closely watched by the students. Although Du Yuanlei wasn't very optimistic about the agency that Qianli Chuanshu signed with, she still knew a little about it. The agency was more inclined towards the film industry and didn't have many resources in the field of singers. However, she was still happy for these two juniors. After all, they were pursuers of dreams. Good luck, Qianli Chuanshu. Chapter 217. Qianli Chuanshu went on stage. Their appearance set off a wave of cheers. Clearly, the freshmen were not unfamiliar with the combination of Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan. It's the two uncles who sing well. Shishi was a little surprised as she pulled on her father's sleeve. The little girl's eyesight was very good. She immediately recognized Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan. Yes, that's right. It's them. Yang Yi smiled slightly. Under the dazzling lights of the stage, although Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan still looked ordinary and dressed in ordinary clothes, it was obvious that signing with a management company was a great encouragement for them. The two of them were high-spirited and their faces were brimming with bashful but confident smiles. I'm lost in the northern winter, wandering in the boundless wilderness, looking at a few geese flying away, thinking of her. The familiar melody and lyrics sounded. Qianli Chuanshu began their singing. Yang Yi could not help but sway his head slightly as he listened to their music. This was a somewhat sad folk song. Although it was an unreleased work by an amateur, it was still very pleasant to listen to, especially Lu Xiaoshu's voice that was as clean as the northern snowy plains. It brought out their own unique charm. This was much more exciting than the other performances of the entire evening party so far. There was still a difference between a folk song and a rock song. The audience did not need to be too fanatical to vent their emotions. They only needed to listen quietly in order to appreciate the beauty of a folk song. Below the stage, not only Yang Yi, but the rest of the audience were intoxicated. Even Ding Xiang, who did not really know how to appreciate music, was listening attentively. There were no twists and turns in the middle. Qianli Chuanshu finished singing their song in its entirety. Following that, the audience below the stage warmly applauded. However, Yang Yi realized that they had perfected the ending of the song. It was much cleaner than the previous version. Perhaps they had listened to his opinion? Or perhaps they had an expert to guide them after signing with the management company. Yang Yi did not know the answer, but he did not care. He also smiled and applauded these two boys who loved music. After Thousand Miles, Kawaki finished singing. Although the audience was still shouting for them to sing another song, the party still went on as planned. Shishi was a little bored because the next few programs were very ordinary, especially the skits. Shishi couldn't understand them and didn't like them. She kept pestering her father and asked, "Papa, when will it be Uncle Gua's turn?" Soon. After repeated questions and responses, it was finally Guaziyi's turn. The girl, who had started to yawn, finally became a little more spirited. "I want to see Uncle Gua." Shishi couldn't sit still on her little stool. She wanted to squeeze into her father's arms. She felt that she could see more clearly sitting on her father's lap. Yang Yi was actually a little uncomfortable sitting there. After all, he was 187 meters tall. Sitting on such a small stool, it was difficult for him to stretch his long legs. However, he still carried Shishi and hugged her in his arms. The party was very lively, but after all, it was autumn. The night wind blew, and the coldness penetrated the clothes and seeped into the bone marrow. Yang Yi hugged his daughter. The little girl's skin was cold, and it was very distressing. However, she was unwilling to wear the jacket that her father brought for her. Yang Yi could only use his body temperature to replace the sun's rays to warm the little girl. After the host's introduction, Jiangnan's college entrance examination top scorer, Fatty Gua, finally went on stage with his guitar. This guy was not afraid at all. As soon as he went on stage, he winked at his classmates, which attracted a lot of attention and made a lot of students laugh. Cough cough. Guaziyi fiddled with the microphone and adjusted it to a suitable height for himself. Then he said slowly, "Thank you, host, for your love. However, the label of top scorer should be removed. Guaziyi is just an ordinary freshman who came to sing for everyone today." The audience burst into laughter. Originally, when the host introduced him as the top scorer, everyone was a little uncomfortable. However, now that they saw this guy's honest appearance, they felt a lot more comfortable in their hearts. There were also many people who cheered loudly. This slightly dull atmosphere was suddenly stirred up. It was even more lively than when Tang Kaitai was at the beginning. This was something that Du Yuanlei did not expect. She looked at Guaziyi, who was like a clown on the stage. She was a little annoyed. If I knew that this person's stage presence was so good, I wouldn't have arranged for Qinwen to go on stage after him. Qinwen was another celebrity freshman in the Film Academy this year. She was a small actress who had filmed a lot of movies and television works. However, at this moment, Du Yuanlei saw Guaziyi looking at her. His eyes were fixed on her. "What do you mean?" Du Yuanlei looked around and confirmed that Guaziyi was indeed looking at her. She had an ominous feeling. On the stage, Guaziyi held the microphone on the shelf and said, "However, although I'm here to sing for everyone today, the song I'm going to sing today, ahem, don't get me wrong. It's not my original song, but a new song that I asked for from a very good friend. It hasn't been released on the market yet." Ding Xiang, who was beside Yang Yi, laughed and said, "What very good friend? Isn't this big brother Yang Yi?" Shishi looked at Sister Ding Xiang in confusion. She did not understand why Sister Ding Xiang would mention her father's name. However, she still looked at Uncle Gua on the stage with full attention. Didn't they come to watch tonight's performance to see Uncle Gua's performance? Guazi continued. I want to sing this song for a special person. The director of our party today, the most beautiful senior Du Yuanlei. As soon as this was said, it caused an uproar. It was not that everyone thought there was anything wrong with campus love. It was just that this sudden confession was a little surprising. After the uproar, there was a burst of applause and uncontrollable laughter around Du Yuanlei. Du Yuanlei frowned. She found it difficult to accept Guazi's confession of love. It could even be said that she was disgusted. She did not like this kind of publicity, and even more so, she disliked Guazi's flamboyant personality. Senior Du, this little fatty is going to sing a love song for you. A girl next to her joked. However, Du Yuanlei's face was cold. She glared at them, and the others were suddenly silent. After all, she was the director. College days. I hope everyone likes it. Guazi was about to start singing. His voice was finally not so jumpy. After snapping his fingers, he calmed down and began to play the guitar he was holding. The prelude was a little long, and there were no piano chords. It was a little thin, but the melody was still very pleasant to listen to. It was clear and simple, like raindrops dripping back and forth under the eaves. The audience, who were originally talking about Guazi's sudden confession, were also attracted by this melody. They quieted down and looked back at the stage, at the boy who was playing the guitar with his head bowed. This was also a folk song? And a campus folk song? Below the stage, 1,000 Miles Kawaki, who did not leave, became spirited. Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan looked at Guazi with some surprise. They listened carefully, and also wanted to learn other people's lyrics and music. This was the habit of every musician. Passing through the sports field to be drenched by the rain. My Shiyu, when did you become lonely? Guazi's voice, which still had a hint of childishness in it, was now displaying its other value. Immature and clean. Different from Lu Xiaoshu's vicissitudes of life, Guazi's voice was clean with the mark of youth. He did not deliberately imitate a deep voice. Just softly humming such a campus folk song, it immediately tugged at people's heartstrings. Chapter 218. When Guazi opened his mouth, Yang Yi secretly nodded. This voice was indeed suitable for singing this song. He didn't waste his efforts in changing the title of the song from High School Days to University Days. Ding Xiang couldn't help but gently shake her head. When Yang Yi wrote this song for Guazi and taught him how to sing it, Ding Xiang was also present. However, as she wasn't very interested in music, she didn't pay much attention to it. Only now did she realize that it was actually so good. After all, humans were vain creatures. Du Yuanlei was no exception. Although she didn't like Guazi and hated this kind of behavior of confessing to her in public, when Guazi sang this song, Du Yuanlei couldn't help but feel her heart beat faster. Of course, the premise was that she didn't look at the little fatty and only listened to the song with her ears perked up. Actually, it wasn't that she hadn't heard Guazi sing this song before. During the first 2 rehearsals, Guazi had sung it before. However, the problem was that at that time, Guazi didn't say that this song was for her. With this layer of relationship, the song sounded a little different. Hiding in the corner secretly crying. Who cried before? When Du Yuanlei heard this part, she couldn't help but snort. That wasn't right at all. She thought of herself as a strong woman. No, it should be said that she was a queen. How could she cry? And hide in the corner? Alright, perhaps when she first entered university, Du Yuanlei would still cry over some grievances. However, later on, after experiencing a failed relationship and complicated film work, Du Yuanlei understood a principle. Don't lower your head, the crown will fall. Don't cry, the bad people will laugh. So who would cry? I'm melancholy. Who will understand you? What was she thinking? The person who sang this song was a disgusting fatty. Du Yuanlei forced herself to shake off the feelings in her head that had long disappeared along with the unforgettable love, and focused on listening to the song. What is love? I don't know. I don't understand forever. I don't understand myself. Guazi didn't know that he had already been placed in the category of impossible. He was still intoxicated by the song. He sang about love in an ethereal voice. The lyrics were a little heartbreaking. Some of the freshmen present might not have felt anything, but those who had experienced it before, as well as many of the older students who had come to watch, felt uncomfortable in their hearts. They felt that Gwazi had voiced out their inner thoughts. What is love? Would they be able to hold each other's hands forever, just like the first pledge of eternal love? I can't. So we think we know what love is, but in reality, we don't know anything. Gwazi's performance on stage was obviously worse than Tang Kaitai's. Even if he didn't have stage fright, when he sang seriously, he didn't have any intention of interacting with the audience and only focused on singing. But this was also a sincere voice that could easily move people. Hiding the lily diary in the bag, my innocent you. At the end of the song, Gwazi followed Yang Yi's score and used a sweep to make the melody come to an abrupt end. It was as if he had really put away his love. As if in the whole world, only his heavy singing was left. The only one in my life. With the only hum, it was as if everything had returned to the beginning, and the prelude loop melody sounded again. It was as if love had come back and had a new beginning, but it was still over. The last loop was heavily clicked, and the stadium was only left with the slight trembling of the strings. The song was over, but the students in the audience were still not satisfied. Just like Qianli Chuanshu's show, the audience once again set off a wave of encore, which was not common. Gwazi carried the guitar behind his back and returned to his original smiling face, as if the one who was focused and deep when singing just now was not him. Encore, encore, I don't have a second song to sing for Director Du. He laughed and helped the host to calm everyone's emotions. Then sing it again, this song is very good. The students in the audience also laughed and some guys cheered. That won't do, I'm singing for Senior Du Yuanlei, and my vitality has been exhausted. If you want to listen to it, you can rebroadcast it on the campus TV, or buy the party CD made by Senior Du. Gwazi pointed to the camera that was being swung down by the swing arm and laughed. In fact, the school still needed to pay the Copyright Association. Singing other people's songs at the party, as long as it was not profitable, there was no problem. But if the school made a CD and sold it, the school had to pay the Copyright Association to ensure the rights of the songwriter. Even though Gwazi had given other solutions, the students still did not let him go. Fortunately, the host came to the rescue. They introduced the next program, which was a solo dance performed by Qin Wen. Only then did the audience who were anxious to see the beauty and the celebrity stop their heckling. Seeing that Gwazi did not forget to make a heart gesture in the direction of Du Yuanlei, Yang Yi shook his head slightly. He smiled and said to Ding Xiang, "After today's incident, I'm afraid that Gwazi will become a famous person on campus in the future, right?" Ding Xiang sighed. "I'm a little regretful that I gave him this idea." "Why?" "I'm afraid that he will be beaten up on the road tomorrow." Ding Xiang snickered. Yang Yi was dumbfounded. He did not know that Ding Xiang, who was usually serious, had such a funny side. At this time Shishi, who was comfortably leaning in her father's arms, pulled her father's lapel, pouted and asked, "Papa, Uncle Gua sang very well, why didn't they let him sing?" "It's not that they didn't let him sing, it's because there are other shows. Uncle Gua only needs to sing one song," Yang Yi said. "The other shows are not good, Papa, let's go home, okay? I'm sleepy." The little girl rubbed her eyes and said softly in her father's arms. "What time is it?" Yang Yi asked and answered his own question. He looked at his watch. "It's almost 10 o'clock? Yes, Shishi still needs to listen to the story and sleep." Shishi took her father's hand and poked her father's watch with her finger. Yang Yi also had the intention to leave. He said to Ding Xiang, "Sisi hasn't taken a shower yet, and it's getting cold outside at night. I won't watch it anymore. I'll take her back first. Do you want to finish watching it, or do you want to leave together?" Ding Xiang hesitated, looked at the little dancing star on the stage. She still chose to leave with Yang Yi, although she was going back to the dormitory. In fact, she still wanted to watch the show, but entertainment was a luxury for Ding Xiang now. She did not have so much time to enjoy it. After going back, she had to take a bath and wash clothes, and then review her lessons. Tomorrow, she had to get up early to go to class and work in the coffee shop. Just like Guizi just sang. What is love? I don't know. Ding Xiang was the same. Love might hurt an idealistic girl like Du Yuanlei, but it was difficult to hurt her, because Ding Xiang also did not have time to think about love. First, work hard to make money so that grandma can have money to cure the disease. Chapter 219. Obviously, Guizi's song didn't move Du Yuanlei. Perhaps Du Yuanlei said something after the party. The next day, Guizi ran to the coffee shop with a depressed face to seek comfort. I'm heartbroken. Yang Yi's face was indifferent. He didn't know how to comfort people, let alone a man. However, Ding Xiang was kind enough to bring out a small piece of cake that she was still learning and experimenting with. She used the delicious food to comfort the little fatty's wounded heart. Hey delicious. Senior sister, when will you learn this skill? You can even sell it out. Guizi ate the sweet and greasy cake. His eyes were shining. The shadow of heartbreak was all driven out. He shouted that he wanted to eat more. He used his actions to prove the meaning of the word happy and fat. He also proved that Yang Yi was right not to comfort him. I can't continue to let you eat. These ingredients were bought by Brother Yang for me to learn how to make pastries. If you want to eat in the future, you have to pay for it. It will be written on the menu. Ding Xiang righteously refused and then asked in a low voice. Is it really delicious? I'm afraid I can't make it well. She couldn't let Shishi try the experimental products she made before. Yang Yi also didn't have a hobby for desserts. He just used a small silver spoon to taste a little bit. Most of the time, Ding Xiang made it herself. Even if she failed before, she was reluctant to throw it away. She would take it back and eat it. However, she didn't have any psychological burden to let Guizi be a lab rat. Guizi was lucky enough to taste Ding Xiang's successful works. Okay. Later, you can discuss the price with Brother Yang and write it on the blackboard. Guizi was drooling and said, I can't wait to eat another piece. After waiting for a long time, Li Manman finally received an email reply from Mu Xiang. However, Mu Xiang's response was different from what she expected. The other party didn't lose his soul because of her soft words. After listening to a few of your albums, your results are getting better year after year, but your singing skills are getting worse year after year. Even the recording studio can't cover up your lack of tolerance. So, why do you have to rack your brains to tempt me to write songs for you? Train your basic skills well, and spend more effort on your own abilities. It's better than you trying to take shortcuts. The email was not long, but Mu Xiang's criticism of her was merciless. It was as if he had stripped away all her disguises and exposed all her scars. Looking at the email, Li Manman's expression could be said to be uncertain. Sadness, resentment, unwillingness, suspicion, jealousy, and so on, all kinds of negative emotions were intertwined. Ichi, who received Li Manman's call, finally came. The moment Ichi pushed open the door, Li Manman put on an aggrieved expression and complained tearfully, Sister E, come and see, this email is too much. I don't even know if it was written by Mu Xiang. I suspect that the B*TCH Murphy purposely hid it from me, and refused to give me the real address. Then she made up the email to provoke me. Ichi comforted Li Manman and carefully looked at the email. As a bystander, Ichi looked at the email and actually had a little idea. The email wasn't wrong. Li Manman did have these problems, but the problem was that Li Manman wasn't the kind of person who humbly listened to other people's criticism. This woman was very smart. She was very good at using her strengths to fight for her own interests. But she had always valued her strengths too much. She thought that she was beautiful, pleasant, and knew how to manipulate a man's bad thoughts. These were enough to replace all her efforts. So, Li Manman ignored her own shortcomings. Especially after she became famous, even if it couldn't be seen from the outside. In fact, she had already become arrogant. In the past, her agent persuaded her to focus on her music, and not put too much thought into currying favor. He dissuaded Li Manman, and caused their relationship to break. So the company arranged Ichi to take care of her. Ichi and Li Manman had some similar ideas. She never persuaded Li Manman, instead, she tried her best to explore Li Manman's potential in some aspects. She let her sing fast songs and dance some sexy dances. The effect was still there. Lee Man-man's current popularity couldn't be separated from Ichi's operation. Ichi was very smart. Even if she had already guessed that this email was indeed written by Mu Xiang, she wouldn't refute Lee Man-man's words. Instead, she gently put her hand on Lee Man-man's shoulder and softly said, "Yes or no, what impact does it have on the result? If Murphy really has such a deep scheme to fool us, I'm afraid she won't admit it even if we go to question her. And if this is really Mu Xiang's reply, with his tone, I'm afraid it's difficult for him to approve of you, let alone write a song for you," Ichi said softly. "So no matter what, I can't let Mu Xiang write a song for me?" Lee Man-man asked unwillingly. The company's teacher Wu has analyzed Mu Xiang's music. Although the styles of his songs in the market are not the same, one thing is certain. Mu Xiang's songs are not easy to sing. If it's not Chen Yijie and Murphy who are famous for their singing skills, I'm afraid that if it's someone else, they won't be able to sing it well. Ichi avoided the sharp edge. Lee Man-man nodded. She was smart enough to understand the agent's meaning. Although she was still somewhat unwilling in her heart, she still smiled and said, "Well, since Sister-y said it so clearly, I don't need to continue to brood over it. Isn't it just a Mu Xiang? I don't care about it." "That's right. You have to believe in the company. The company has spent a lot of effort to cultivate you, so we will definitely do our best to collect songs for you. Without Mu Xiang, we still have Yidong Xiang, Zhou Xiang. We will definitely release a platinum album for you," Ichi said. Lee Man-man smiled sweetly, but there was a gloomy light hidden in her eyes. Murphy wanted to record songs with a peace of mind, but it was obviously difficult to do so. Last time, she was arranged to be on the program, Fast Music Fast Music. Although it hadn't been broadcast yet, Sister Ling still got feedback from the Guangdong Province TV station. Naturally, this feedback wasn't what Niu Meiling wanted to see. The effect could be said to be the complete opposite of what she had expected. Mo Fei's "I Came Across the Sea to See You" was very popular with the audience at the scene. It was completely predictable what kind of popularity the show would have after it was broadcasted. There were even some clues about it in the media reports. Niu Meiling thought about it for a few days. During this time, she didn't discuss it with anyone, but silently calculated by herself. Finally, one day, Niu Meiling called Murphy over. Taking advantage of Mo Xiaojuan's absence from the company, she bypassed Mo Xiaojuan and directly talked to Murphy about the contract renewal. "Murphy, you also know how the company and Sister Ling treat you. For so many years, Sister Ling has protected you like a daughter. Even if you had a child and insisted on retiring from the music industry, Sister Ling didn't stop you." Niu Meiling spoke with emotion and moved with reason. She was emotional, and her eyes were red as she persuaded Murphy. Chapter 220. That's the situation. What do you think we should do? At the dinner table, Murphy rested her chin on her hand as she looked at Yang Yi with sparkling eyes. Niu Meiling talked about their friendship and sighed as she confessed to Murphy about the company's predicament for the past 2 years. In the end, she took out a contract to let Murphy renew, but it wasn't the contract that Murphy had originally signed. Of course, she wasn't too unreliable. She didn't use some deceptive rookie contract to trick Mo Fei. This contract was even better than Zhen Zhen's. It could be considered as a second-tier contract, second only to the top contract. However, the term of the contract was not short. It was originally supposed to be 5 years, but Niu Meiling changed it to 7 years. However, Murphy didn't know why, but recently, she felt that Niu Meiling's smile was a bit fake. Murphy felt that Sister Ling was no longer as amiable as before. She was both a teacher and a friend. Instead, she felt that there was a lot of estrangement. Although she was still reminded of the beautiful memories of the past by Niu Meiling, when she saw this contract, Mo Fei woke up and her mind was very calm. According to what Sister Ling said, the company's operations were in trouble and needed her to share the joys and sorrows, so a second-tier contract wasn't impossible. However, Murphy faintly felt that something was wrong. Her contract still had nearly a year before it expired. Why was Sister Ling suddenly so anxious? Could it be that someone was preparing to poach her? However, Sister Ling should know that she, Murphy, had always been loyal to Tian Mei. When her platinum album successfully reached the top, there were also other major record companies who wanted to poach her and train her to become a pillar of the industry. The conditions they offered were amazing even now, but Mo Fei still chose to stay, and she immediately renewed her contract with Tian Mei, which was to say, she signed a contract extension. Murphy didn't want to think too badly of Niu Meiling. After all, Sister Ling was her talent scout, so she couldn't understand the reason behind this. Fortunately, Murphy wasn't stupid. She was still a little smart. When Mo Fei was in a dilemma, she did not sign the contract under Niu Meiling's persuasion. Instead, Mo Fei chose to shelve the request of renewing the contract. That night, Murphy was not in the mood to work overtime to record songs. Instead, she called Yang Yi to pick her up. After dinner, she discussed the matter with Yang Yi. "Why are you asking me?" Yang Yi asked in surprise. "Can't I discuss it with you?" Murphy bit her lower lip and asked unhappily. "Of course, I can't wait to help you." Yang Yi smiled. "But don't you usually discuss things with Xiaowan about Tian Mei?" "If you ask Xiaowan, she'll definitely say she doesn't want to sign a contract with Sister Ling." Xiaowan has a lot of prejudice against Sister Ling, Jian Chua, and the company's management. "I know she's doing this for my own good, but I hope you can give me some good advice," Murphy said. Unfortunately, Murphy didn't know that the person she asked had already been roped in by Mo Xiaowan. But Yang Yi didn't give Murphy a direct answer. Instead he asked, "What do you think? Do you want to stay in Tian Mei?" Murphy hesitated for a moment. She gently nodded and said, "If the company isn't what I'm worried about, if Sister Ling and the others aren't in a bad state, I still want to stay in Tian Mei. After all, they've helped me a lot before." "Actually, you see it very clearly. You just don't want to admit it in your heart. Sister Ling is no longer the Sister Ling you knew before. And this company doesn't treat you as well as before, right?" Yang Yi smiled and said straightforwardly. "For example, when you returned, the album they chose for you. Can't you see what kind of songs they chose for you?" Mo Fei bit her lower lip, and her face became gloomy. "Another example is the meeting you told me before. Mu Xiang wrote 12 songs for you. In the end, they wanted to snatch all of them. They only took a large part of it, not all of it." Murphy weakly defended herself. "You fool." Yang Yi grabbed Murphy's hand and wrapped it in his big hand. He said softly, "What's the difference between snatching a part of it or all of it? More importantly, didn't you tell me that Sister Ling didn't speak up for you, but instead advised you to compromise?" Murphy gently nodded. "Your Sister Ling didn't think for your own good. Then why do you still want to think for their own good? Why do you have to wrong yourself to sign a bad contract?" Yang Yi asked. Murphy didn't feel good in her heart, but she still lowered her eyebrows and said softly, "Because I can only be considered a C or D-list celebrity. I'm not qualified to sign a contract, and the company's situation isn't good. Tian Mei's situation is very good. At least it's not as bad as Sister Ling lied to you," Yang Yi said firmly. "And as for whether you're qualified to sign a contract, I think your Sister Ling knows. Otherwise, she wouldn't have shamelessly come to you in advance to renew the contract. Isn't she just afraid that after your new album comes out, you'll become popular again?" It was as if a thin film had been pierced. Yang Yi's repeated questions completely defeated Murphy's last bit of hope in human nature, allowing her to see the truth that she didn't want to believe before. Yang Yi's hand was tightly grasped by Murphy. She was a little hesitant. "Then what should I do? What if the company forces me to sign a contract? Do you still want to stay in Tian Mei?" Yang Yi asked again. Murphy gently nodded, and then shook her head. "I don't want to leave, but I also don't want to renew the contract with Sister Ling," Murphy said. She was now very confused about her future. "Then you can wait for the contract to end. Then we'll open our own studio and write your name." Yang Yi gently rubbed Murphy's hand and said, "Let's open it in Tingshan district and find some people to serve you. In the future, you'll live at home. I'll send Shishi to kindergarten and send you to work. I'll pick you up at night. You don't have to rush to commercial performances, nor do you have to rush to jobs. You just need to sing your songs, have a concert, or pick some variety shows that you like to play. Murphy was tempted by Yang Yi's words. She was really looking forward to this kind of life. In the past few months, she had been sitting on a plane to a strange city every day. She was very tired. Or every night. She would return to a house without her daughter and without Yang Yi by her side. She was very lonely. The daily life that Yang Yi described to her was the life she wanted to live. She even forgot about her ties with Tianmei and Sister Ling, and seriously considered this possibility. But, if I don't run commercial performances, how will I have money? I don't have much money left. Living abroad with Shishi is very expensive. I might not be able to support the studio for more than a few months. Murphy asked worriedly. Yang Yi was dumbfounded. Murphy really asked a question that she shouldn't be worried about. There's still me. Silly, you're with me. Isn't my money your money? Yang Yi asked. Your money? Do you have a lot of money? Mo Fei asked confusedly. In fact, she didn't have the intention to take care of money. Money was just a row of numbers in the bank account for her. Even after she got together with Yang Yi, she didn't even think about taking her boyfriend's bank card and holding it for him like other women. In her impression, Yang Yi wrote novels. Perhaps he had more money than before, but he still had to run the coffee shop and raise Shishi. How much money could he have left? Chapter 221. I'm really rich. Yang Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He explained to Murphy the source of his income, and reluctantly let Murphy recognize the concept that he was very rich. However, Murphy was still a little worried. Yang Yi, the entertainment circle may be different from what you think. It can't be solved by money. For example, when I release an album, we need to collect songs, hire producers, do promotion, and so on. The most important thing is that we need the support of the company's resources. Not every time there is a songwriter like Mu Xiang to write a whole album of songs for me. It doesn't matter. You can trust me. Mu Xiang will write songs for you next time. Yang Yi smiled. He put his right hand's fingers together and cut down. He said half-jokingly, I'll put a kitchen knife on his neck and see if he wants to. You're talking nonsense. Murphy couldn't help laughing and said, if you do that, let alone Mu Xiang, no one will write songs for me in the future. I'm just kidding. Yang Yi patted Murphy's hand and said with a smile, anyway, whether it's the problem of songs or the studio, you don't have to worry about it. I have a way to help you solve it. Even if it was the most troublesome issue of album distribution, Yang Yi actually had a way. He had a good relationship with Tianxiang Records in Harbor City. At worst, he could write 2 more songs for Chen Yijie and do them a favor. They would not refuse to help. I'll take care of everything, Yang Yi said softly. Murphy felt warm in her heart. Although reason told her that Yang Yi, a guy who had nothing to do with the entertainment circle, was just a male chauvinist, her emotions were still touched. There was an impulse like the wild grass in spring. Murphy's eyes were a little red, and there seemed to be something flowing in her bright eyes. Her hand that was holding Yang Yi became warm and wet. Yang Yi had already known Murphy's depth. How could he not see her emotional performance? If it weren't for his daughter, this dining table would have become their fiery battlefield as long as they swept away the pots and pans with one hand. However, Shishi's existence turned all these crazy ideas into bubbles. The little girl appeared at the right time and interrupted the emotions that her parents had just been brewing. Papa. Xiaohui and Dodo are not obedient. They are pooping on the balcony. The little girl ran over and complained. She started shouting from afar. Looking at Yang Yi's helpless expression, Murphy pursed her lips and snickered. Her face flushed red. Yang Yi looked at Murphy's snickering. He pinched her delicate nose and said, come to my room tonight. Shishi had already run over. She took her father's hand and pulled him to the balcony while saying, Papa, come and see. Little Gray and Dondo are pooping on the balcony again. How do you know it's Xiaohui and Dudu? Where's Xiaoguai? Yang Yi asked with a smile. Xiaoguai is very obedient. It won't go to the balcony. Shishi quickly explained. Under the lead of Shishi, Yang Yi came to the balcony and found the 2 black things. One was on the floor, and the other was in the flower pot. They were different in shape and color. Xiao Hui, Dudu, come here and identify them. See if this is what you did. Yang Yi turned his head and shouted. Dudu, who was squatting on the cat tree, glanced at its owner, turned its head lazily and went into the artificial cave, leaving only its butt outside. On the other hand, Little Gray was the most active. It wagged its tail and slowly walked over. Xiao Guai also followed behind it. Xiao Hui, did you poop on these two, Xiao Guai? Yang Yi asked with a smile. She saw Xiao Guai running over. She bent down and picked it up. She habitually scratched Xiao Guai's chin and pouted. It's definitely not Xiao Guai, right? Xiao Guai is so obedient. Xiao Guai rubbed its little master's palm intimately, thinking that the little master wanted to play with it again. Xiao Hui, who was too smart for his own good, let out a meow and circled around Yang Yi's feet. He even rubbed against Yang Yi's feet in a fawning manner. Finally, he stretched out his claws and hooked onto his master's trousers in an attempt to make him walk away. Don't look. Don't I care about my face? Xiao Hui seemed to be acting coquettishly. It seems that it's you. Yang Yi smiled and squatted down. He held Xiao Hui's big round face and flicked its forehead gently. Actually, he didn't use much strength. He just wanted to scare this naughty guy. Xiao Hui was in pain. It meowed and struggled to get away. Then it squatted aside and rubbed its head against its paws. It seemed that it was still in pain. Hey, don't hit it. Cats are not humans. They don't understand what you're saying. Murphy walked over and squatted down to comfort Xiao Hui. I didn't use much strength, did I? Yang Yi scratched his head. Cats are very sensitive. If you hit it, it will be scared of you next time and won't play with you. Murphy explained. They don't poop in their own toilet. Maybe it's because you haven't changed their cat litter for too long. Xiao Guai, who was in Xishi's arms, was also restless. While Xishi wasn't holding it firmly, it twisted its body and kicked Xishi's belly. Then it jumped down from Xishi. Xiao Guai, where are you going? Cici hurriedly chased after her and went back to the living room. She had forgotten that she had come to complain to her father just now. She giggled and took out the little plastic ball that wrapped the bell and started playing with Xiao Guai. Ling ling ling. As soon as this magical object appeared, it immediately attracted the attention of all the kittens. Even Shido jumped down from the cat tree. Xiao Hui didn't care about its grievance. It jumped out of Murphy's arms and chased after it. Yang Yi and Murphy cleaned up the mess. He swept the 2 balls of cat poop into the trash bag and wiped the floor several times. Murphy helped to change the cat litter in the 3 cat toilets. After all, cats were felines and had a strong sense of territory. Although they were siblings, Xiao Hui and the others would never share the same toilet with their siblings. Therefore, Yang Yi bought a cat toilet with a roof for each of them. This kind of cat toilet with an enclosed space was very popular with the 3 British Shorthairs when it was first bought. After a period of training, they were used to using the cat toilet. However, they were pooping outside today, which made Yang Yi a little confused. Murphy explained to Yang Yi, actually, you often clean their poop, but it's not good if you don't give them new cat litter. Over time, the cats will dislike it because the old cat litter already has a smell. Cat litter is a kind of consumable. Every time you use our special shovel to clean their poop, you have to remember to remove the stained cat litter and add new cat litter. This way, the cats will be willing to continue pooping in the cat toilet. This time, Murphy simply poured all the cat litter in the 3 cat toilets into the trash bag that Yang Yi brought over. Then Yang Yi came over with a heavy bag of cat litter and refilled the cat toilet. After a while, facing the cat toilet in the corner of the study, Xiao Guai, Dao Dao, and Xiao Hui stood in a row. At this moment, the restless Xiao Hui was lying down obediently. Xixi brought a small stool and naughtily sat in a row with the kittens. She looked at her mother with a smile. Murphy was not as fierce as Yang Yi. She picked up the kittens one by one. Even Dao Dao, who was the coldest, narrowed its eyes and enjoyed Murphy's affection. Murphy stroked its thin hair and pointed to the cat toilet. She said softly, "This is Dao Dao's toilet. In the future, you have to be obedient and poo in the toilet. If you are obedient, Mom will reward you." Cici sat on a small stool, twisting back and forth as if she was playing with a wooden horse. Unwilling to be left out, she called out, "Where's mine? What about me?" Chapter 222. Time passed quietly, and in the blink of an eye, it was the golden month of October. Jiangqing Media University didn't have the fragrance of melons and fruits, but it was also full of falling petals. The cool autumn wind blew the brilliant golden petals all over the ground, evoking the romantic feelings of many students. In this season, there were people confessing, people falling in love, and people falling out of love. However, these had nothing to do with Yang Yi. Yang Yi only knew that this was a good season for taking photos. Taking advantage of one weekend, he excitedly picked up the SLR camera and let Shishi step on the crisp fallen leaves to take many photos of people with beautiful depth of field on the beautiful campus road of Jiangchuan. Although it wasn't a film camera and he couldn't make a darkroom to develop the photos, Yang Yi still spent a lot of money to buy a big machine and used professional photo paper to print out these digitally formatted photos. Ever since Ding Xiang took over the coffee shop, Yang Yi had time to play with these gadgets. Not only would he print out palm-sized highlights that could be put into the family photo album, but now he was also playing with high-end large-sized photos. He used professional matte photo paper to print them. Although they were still in color, there was an obvious graininess and a strong artistic aura. These photo papers were very expensive. Yang Yi only chose the good-looking ones and printed some. He used special solid wood frames and transparent glass to frame them. He either used a stand to put them on his desk or hung them on the wall at home with nails. He also specially chose the one he was most proud of. It was a photo of Shishi looking up in the background of golden fallen leaves. She was a little surprised to see a small animal jumping on the tree next to her. This cute side profile was captured by her father. He took it downstairs to the coffee shop and placed it on the shelf next to his exclusive booth. When a familiar customer asked about it, Yang Yi proudly told him, "This is my daughter. I took the photo." Yes, it was taken on the small slope in Jiangchuan. The coffee shop's business gradually entered a stable period. After all, due to the location, and the fact that coffee was just a new thing for most China students, it was okay to experience it. Not many people were willing to spend dozens of yuan to drink a cup of expensive freshly ground coffee every day. Not to mention the coffee shop's new product, the baked cupcakes. Under Yang Yi's inspiration, Ding Xiang gave up on the complicated pudding and multi-layer cake. Instead, she developed cupcakes that had a wide variety of styles, but were simple and convenient to make. Cupcakes could be made with all the ingredients in one go, then poured into multiple paper cups and baked together in the oven. After that, all they needed to do was to let it cool down and squeeze some cream on top before inserting slices of strawberries or other fruits. However, even though the introduction of the cupcakes had slightly increased the income of the coffee shop, the number of customers in the coffee shop had not increased. This made Ding Xiang a little depressed. It wasn't that the cupcakes couldn't be sold out. Every night, the glutton Guazi would run over and buy all the remaining cupcakes that couldn't be sold out for supper. Ding Xiang had no choice but to sell them. But the problem was not the sales of the cupcakes. Ding Xiang wanted the popularity of the coffee shop to increase. Yang Yi didn't interfere, nor did he comfort Ding Xiang. He saw everything and let Ding Xiang do her own thing. Yang Yi didn't care about whether the coffee shop's business was good or bad. He was very interested in seeing Ding Xiang's growth and changes. It was like an anthropology teacher doing a project about macaques. An opportunity was stuffed into the hands of a girl who used to live a poor life, who had to run for 3 meals every day, and who had a trace of inferiority in her eyes when she interacted with others. What kind of miracle would she create? Yang Yi didn't know, but he felt that it would be very interesting to continue watching like a bystander. So when Ding Xiang said to him in frustration, "I know all the customers who come every day, and I can even name them, but I haven't seen any new customers for a week." Yang Yi smiled but didn't say anything. In fact, it wasn't that there weren't any new customers in the past week. Yesterday there were 2 people. For Ding Xiang, they were new customers, but for Yang Yi and the coffee shop they were old customers. Ding Xiang didn't count them. 1,000 Miles Creek Tree. These 2 people were here to say goodbye. Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan applied for a leave of absence from the school, and then prepared to go to Xiangnan to report to the entertainment agency they signed with. But for some reason, the day before they left, they thought of Yang Yi, the owner of the coffee shop whom they had only met once. The two took their guitars and what little pocket money they had with them to the coffee shop. They ordered the most expensive coffee and Ding Xiang's new cupcakes. "Boss, we came this time to thank you. Thank you for the encouragement you gave us when we were still a little confused about the path we chose. Also, thank you for the guidance you gave to our songs." Lu Xiaoshu spoke again, and Miao Chuan nodded at the side. "You two are too serious." Yang Yi didn't feel that what he said was important. He smiled and waved his hand, saying, "At that time, didn't you already earn your first income through commercial performances? Actually, you just didn't have much confidence in your looks, but deep in your hearts, didn't you already have the determination to walk this path? My words are just icing on the cake." Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan knew that Yang Yi didn't care much about money, and they couldn't give Yang Yi anything in return, so they were at a disadvantage. So this time, they came with their modified representative work, "I Miss Her in the Northern Winter," and wanted to sing it for Yang Yi. This is our modified version. It was also because of your guidance that we were able to use this song to move the talent scouts and have the opportunity to become artists. So before we leave, we hope to sing this song for you, so that you can listen to the song's melody become purer under your guidance. Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan didn't know that Yang Yi had already heard their song at the freshmen's party, but Yang Yi didn't point it out, and raised his hand to signal them to sing. "I'm lost in the northern winter, wandering in the boundless wilderness, looking at a few flocks of geese flying away, thinking of her, that face that can't come back." Lu Xiaoshu's boundless and clean singing voice mixed with Miao Chuan's voice, slowly reverberating in the coffee shop. At this moment, there were only a few customers in the coffee shop. The empty coffee shop seemed to have its own surround sound, and the unplugged singing actually had the effect of a recording studio. Ding Xiang couldn't help but stop the filter in her hand and listen. "Don't ask me when I can cross the mountains and rivers, cross the grasslands, and come to your side, because that is today." Similar to university days, the ending was a simple melody loop, and the voice gradually became softer until the ring finger that was plucking the strings finally stopped. Qianli Chuanshu left, just like their song, crossing the mountains and rivers. They would go to another place and start their new musical journey. Yang Yi wasn't optimistic about their dropping out of school to join a management company, nor was he optimistic about their prospects of entering the music and entertainment industry without much training, but he didn't say anything to remind them. After all, they had already signed a contract, and their ambitions were uncertain. The first time they met, they were acquaintances, and the second time they met, they could be considered friends. Then I wish you all the best, friends. Chapter 223. Southwest Wenshan was a dense forest. The continuous mountain ranges were wrapped in thick vegetation, forming a mass of green tombs. Even the cliffs were mottled with moss. Thick moisture shrouded this originally beautiful world. In the dense forest, sunlight could not penetrate. It was so damp and gloomy that it was more like a tomb that buried all living things. This had once been a nightmare for the army trained on the plains. Today there was a group of Jiangnan troops walking here. Their steps were not difficult. Even when they encountered obstacles, their hands, which were wearing tactical gloves, propped themselves up on the fallen withered trees and slithered over silently like a snake. It was as if they had long adapted to this kind of climate and environment. The scout in the lead raised his fist, and his comrades who were marching separately behind him became vigilant. They raised the rifles in their hands and paid attention to the movements around them. "What's the situation?" When a scout ran over, a man with the same camouflage makeup on his face asked in a low voice. "I don't know yet. De Bao feels that something is wrong. Be alert." The commander nodded. He still trusted Guo de Bao's sixth sense. However, at this moment, gunshots suddenly rang out. One by one, the heavily camouflaged leaf people hung down from the trees like apes, the rifles in their hands spraying red flames wantonly. Although they were already very vigilant, they did not expect a crisis to fall from the sky. The soldiers from Jiangnan emitted red light and helplessly fell to the ground. Of course, not everyone was immediately eliminated. There were a few who were skilled and nimble. When they heard the movement, they immediately turned around and found cover. However, it was too late for them to counterattack. Their cover was immediately covered by a well-trained rain of bullets, and they could not raise their heads at all. Guadabeo was one of them. He saw with his own eyes that when one of his brothers wanted to raise his head to shoot, he was immediately shot in the forehead. His body emitted red light, and he could only lie down helplessly. F***CK, Jean Lang, you bastards are using sneak attacks. If you have the guts, come and fight me one-on-one. Guadabeo shouted sullenly. After a moment of silence, a playful voice was heard. Okay. One-on-one. Come, throw out your guns. I'll fight you one-on-one. If I lose, you win this game. That's what you said. Guadabeo excitedly threw away the rifle in his hand and jumped out from behind cover. This was a special competition for this year's army competition. The Viper Special Forces of the Jiangnan military region were a little miserable. Not only were they in the same group as Jean Lang, but because the location of the army competition was set in the southwest, this was their territory, so their chances of qualifying were even slimmer. Originally, Viper had thought that even if he lost, he would have to fight a little more fiercely with Jean Lang so that he wouldn't lose so badly. However, they were still ambushed and almost all of them were annihilated. If they went back, they would be laughed at to death. However, Guadabeo still felt that he had grasped onto the last straw of hope. Regardless of whether the other party was coaxing him or not, at least there was still a glimmer of hope. Moreover, in terms of experience in fighting in the jungle, even a few vipers might not be able to win. However, in terms of personal skills, Guadabeo was still a little confident. The people of Jean Lang were still standing vigilantly with their guns. A few of them had already spread out to investigate. Only a guy who was a little jumpy was taking off his disguise, revealing the same military uniform as Guadabeo. However, there was a wolf's head sewn on his sleeve, revealing his identity. Guadabeo also learned from the other party. He threw aside the cumbersome bulletproof vest, tactical suit, and a dagger that he liked to tie to his ankle. Strategically, he despised the enemy, but tactically, he had to pay attention to the enemy. When it was time to fight, that guy also became serious. He stared at Guadabeo and said in a deep voice, "The captain of the second team of the Southwest Military Region's Jean Lang Special Forces, Shen Sinyu." This was a self-introduction. Guadabeo also cupped his hands in a very gangster manner and said, "Jiangnan Military Region's Viper Special Forces, Guadabeo." Without further ado, they immediately started fighting. After Guadabeo had experienced the competition with Yang Yi, his kung fu seemed to have improved again. As soon as they started fighting, the fierce wind from the split palm made Shen Sinyu have no choice but to pay attention. Shen Sinyu used the army's military boxing, but it was a special version that was not taught to outsiders, and was extremely lethal. Although it was not as fierce as the split palm, Shen Sinyu steadily parried, and looked for opportunities to counterattack. That was always a tricky and vicious counterattack, which also made Guadabeo not dare to show any flaws. The entanglement between the two of them was almost a punch to the flesh, and they fought to their heart's content for almost a quarter of an hour. Shen Sinyu suddenly took a step back and laughed. "Guadabeo, if you only have this little bit of kung fu, I'm afraid you're going to lose today." Guadabeo said angrily, "Don't King only know how to talk. Come on, beat me up." He was so excited that his sweat had washed away the camouflage on his face. The clothes that had been torn in the fight just now were now revealing his dark and extremely strong muscles. "Then I'll offend you." Shen Sinyu rushed forward, and his move suddenly changed. It was originally a military boxing, but now, it suddenly became a close combat Wing Chun. Guadabeo recognized it, but he was a little unable to resist. After Shen Sinyu got close, it was a little difficult for him to find a space to use his split palm, and it was very difficult to fight. But Guadabeo was also tenacious. He resisted for another quarter of an hour before he was unexpectedly tripped by Shen Sinyu's foot. Then he was caught by the back of his hand and pressed firmly to the ground. "Do you admit defeat?" Shen Sinyu was a little embarrassed by Guadabeo's desperate struggle. He took a breath and asked. Guadabeo's mouth was gnawing on the soil, and the smell of rotten vegetation entered his nose. He breathed heavily and said sullenly, "No. Admit defeat." He could accept personal grudges, but this was related to the team's honor, and Guadabeo intended to rather die than admit defeat. Okay, Dabeo. At this time, the captain who was killed walked out and said with a sigh, if you agree to a bet, you must accept defeat. Our viper has fallen to the hands of Battle Wolf again. Old Luo Zongxing, why are you still not coming out? Did you retire, you bastard? In the crowd of Battle Wolf, a leaf person walked out, smiled and cupped his fist to the captain of Viper, and said, Old Li, isn't it normal for your Viper to lose to us? Don't be discouraged, you still have a competition next. Mother Kerr, my troops have trained hard for a year just to defeat you Zhanlang once. Next time be careful. If we don't play in your territory, we'll kill you in minutes. Viper's captain Old Li spat, but he was still smiling and cursing. In fact, they were all comrades, although they only saw each other a few times a year. But after a few fights, they became friends. In your dreams, even if we go to your territory, you're not our match. Luo Zongxing laughed. Mother Kerr, Old Luo, if you have the guts, pull Battle Wolf over to Jiangnan and try. Luo Zongxing smiled. He pointed at the other party and said, Old Li, you're not being kind. You're trying to provoke me. You want Battle Wolf to be your free sparring partner? TSK, you obviously don't dare. Old Li was stubborn. Chapter 224. While the other side was cursing, the other side was also harmonious. Shin Sinyu dragged Guadabeo, who had a mouthful of mud, up from the ground and enthusiastically helped him pat the mud off his body. Not bad, there's still an expert like you in the Jiangnan military region. Guadabeo calmed down at this moment and asked curiously, Shin Sinyu, what's your ranking in Battle Wolf? I'm talking about pure free combat. Shin Sinyu raised his eyebrows and said, Me? I'm just a rookie. If you come to the Southwest military region and ask who's the best in Battle Wolf, it's definitely me, Shin Sinyu. Next to him, Battle Wolf's teammates could not help but smile. They knew that Shin Sinyu, this fellow, was boasting again. In Battle Wolf, even if Shin Sinyu was not ranked first, he was at least in the top 3. Otherwise, how could he dare to say that Battle Wolf would admit defeat if Guadabeo defeated him? The simple and honest Guadabeo believed it. He nodded and said with emotion, Battle Wolf is really talented. I met a retired soldier from your army before. Now he's writing novels. He's even better than you, Shin Sinyu. Unfortunately, he didn't have time to come to our place to train me. Retired from our army? Better than Shin Sinyu? A few people from Battle Wolf next to him frowned. The veterans who had not left Battle Wolf in the past 2 years, and even the veterans who had retired because of serious injuries, were basically poached by other military regions as consultants. Their troops were basically all elite soldiers, not to mention those who were better than Shin Sinyu, who would be willing to let them go. Therefore, they expressed deep doubts about Guadabeo's statement. In fact, Yang Yi's books were also promoted and distributed to the Southwest military region. However, the Southwest military region did not have the book fans of the Jiangnan military region. Naturally, the promotion was far less than the Jiangnan military region. Really, why would I lie to you? He came to our military region as a guest. Hundreds of people watched me fight with him. I couldn't beat him at all. Guadabeo said with dissatisfaction. Shin Sinyu clenched his fists. An answer faintly appeared in his heart, but he didn't dare to believe it. He just calmly asked Guadabeo, What's the name of the person you're talking about? Yang Yi. Haven't any of you watched Soldier Assault and Drawing Sword? Those are all his. Guadabeo's words were interrupted. As expected, after hearing this name, Shin Sinyu's eyes suddenly widened. He rushed forward, grabbed Guadabeo's hand and asked excitedly, Yang Yi? Are you talking about Yang Yi? Mu Yi Yang, the E of anecdotes? Guadabeo was still thinking about how to write the E of the anecdote, but he was thinking about the E of the anecdote. He shook his head, squatted down, and used his finger to draw a few lines in the dirt. Not the E of the anecdote, but this. That's right. This is it. Yang Yi, where did you see Yang Yi? Shin Sinyu was so excited that she almost grabbed Guadabeo's collar and lifted him up from the ground. The noise attracted the attention of old Li and Luo Zongxing. Luo Zongxing walked over and scolded. Shen Xinyu, what are you doing? Put him down. These are our comrades. Are you confused between a drill and a war? Shen Xinyu quickly let go of Guo Debao and did not bother to defend himself. He said excitedly to Luo Zongxing, Master Luo, this guy, Guo Debao said that he saw Yang Yi. Yang Yi. The name suddenly made Luo Zongxing feel absent-minded. It was as if he had suddenly returned to the past. The brother who made him feel ashamed every time he thought of it appeared in front of his eyes. Yang Yi? Is it really Yang Yi? Several veterans of Zhanlang also widened their eyes and asked excitedly. Yang Yi, where is he now? Luo Zongxing, who was called Master Luo by his brothers, sounded a little heavy, as if to cover up his sobbing nasal voice. Is he okay now? He should be fine, right? I wrote 2 very good novels. Haven't you read them? By the way, is he really from Zhanlang? Guo Debao scratched his head and said. Old Li nodded and said, I've also seen Yang Yi. He's doing well now. I heard that our superiors wanted to hire him as Viper's instructor, but he didn't agree. Hey, old Luo, what's going on with him? Sai, it's all my fault. I didn't protect him well. Luo Zongxing smiled bitterly and said calmly, when he left, he didn't even leave a way to contact him. We've been looking for him all these years, but we couldn't find him. 2 years ago, Lu. Shen Xinyu almost said it out loud. Fortunately, a brother next to him pulled him back. Shen Xinyu stopped himself from saying that name and said resentfully, Anyway, the matter has been resolved. Master Luo wants to get Yang Yi back. Even if he's fat now and can't fight, he should still be treated well. By the way, his military status has been restored long ago. He's just retired. Guo Debao didn't allow others to talk about his idol. He said unhappily, Yang Yi didn't get fat. He's still very strong. Didn't I say that he's stronger than you? Nonsense, Yang Yi is stronger than me? In the past, he was tortured by me and Zhanlang. Shen Xinyu shouted unhappily. In fact, there wasn't such a big gap between them. Yang Yi and Shen Xinyu used to be on par with each other, and neither of them was convinced of the other's strength. However, Yang Yi and Shen Xinyu were friends who had gone through life and death together. In addition, they appreciated each other, so Shen Xinyu had been thinking about Yang Yi, an old rival. But he couldn't lose in terms of momentum. TSK, I said he's stronger than you, so he's stronger than you. When he used his full strength, I couldn't even resist. Guo Debao snorted and said, If you don't believe me, go to Jiangqing and fight him one-on-one. In Jiangqing, Yang Yi sneezed. He frowned, thinking that he had caught a cold. Although this body was strong enough, and it was almost impossible for him to catch a cold or have a fever, there was a delicate little girl at home. In order to not infect his daughter, he told Ding Xiang and went to the school hospital in Jiangqing to buy 2 packs of cold medicine to drink. On the way back, he inadvertently saw Guo Ziyi standing in front of the Film Academy building. Standing face to face with Guo Ziyi was Du Yuanlei, the girl that Guo Ziyi couldn't forget. Du Yuanlei could be considered a beauty, right? Yang Yi didn't feel anything when he looked at her. Murphy was much prettier than her. Even Mo Shaowan could barely compete with her. However, as a director, Du Yuanlei's temperament was indeed much better than ordinary girls. Maybe it was because of her talent that Guo Ziyi was attracted to her? Because Guo Ziyi was his good friend Yang Yi, who didn't gossip, was also interested. He watched from afar for a while, watching Guo Ziyi's expression gradually change from joy to disappointment. Finally, he lowered his head, handed the things in his hand to Du Yuanlei, and walked away dejectedly. Du Yuanlei was expressionless throughout the whole process. After waiting for Du Yuanlei to return, Yang Yi quickly walked towards Guo Ziyi. He patted the depressed little fatty's shoulder and said with a smile, What's wrong? Didn't you say that you've given up? Why are you looking for her again today? Brother Yang. Guo Ziyi saw that Yang Yi was a little surprised and blushed. You saw everything? I saw it. It's not a big deal. You were rejected. Yang Yi comforted. There are plenty of fish in the sea. Why do you have a one-sided love for one flower? Guo Ziyi sighed and told the whole story. Originally, the little fatty had also given up. But later, Du Yuanlei called all the performers for a meeting. She requested for non-original programs to provide the authorizations of the songwriters, so that they could have a share of the profits. Basically, they couldn't give it. So their share of the profits from singing basically went to the songwriters. Although it wouldn't be much, it was indeed the request of the copyright organization. It was a pervasive restriction on all possibilities of profit from infringement. However, there were still a few people who could provide the authorizations. For example, Tang Kaitai, who had a strong background. If Guozi asked, Yang Yi would also give him the authorizations. But this guy didn't care about such a small amount of money. He was too lazy to make it so complicated. But he still needed to provide the name of the songwriter of his song, University Days. Guozi knew that Yang Yi didn't want the whole city to know, so he suggested to tell Du Yuanlei in private. Du Yuanlei agreed. This gave Guozi a wrong signal. This guy thought that his relationship with Du Yuanlei could be saved, so he secretly learned from Yang Yi. To be exact, he secretly learned from Xishi's handiwork. He wrote a full love letter and folded it into a heart pattern. Then there was the scene that Yang Yi saw just now. She accepted the letter? Yang Yi remembered that Guozi gave something to Du Yuanlei. No, it's just another piece of paper with your stage name, Mu Ziong, and a certification link from a copyright organization. Guozi sighed and said. He spread out the other hand that he had been clenching. His red heart was soaked with sweat. It's still the same sentence. There are plenty of fish in the sea. There are so many beautiful women in Jiangchuan. You don't have to hang yourself on Du Yuanlei. Yang Yi comforted him. A real man. How can I have a family without a career? Brother Yang, I don't want to fall in love. I want to work hard for my dream of being an actor. Guozi threw the red heart into a passing trash can and said solemnly. Chapter 225. Yang Yi, come here, there's news about you. In the bedroom, Yang Yi was packing up the clothes, hats, cosmetics, and some other miscellaneous things that Mo Fei brought and stuffed them all into the suitcase. Mo Fei, who was watching TV in the living room, suddenly yelled. Last time, Niu Meiling asked Murphy to renew the contract, but Murphy, who asked for Yang Yi's advice, resisted the other party's flowery words, and then sent Mo Shaowan to deal with the company. It was true that Mo Fei did not know how to play mind games with others, but Mo Shaowan knew how to play mind games without a teacher, and she was very good at playing mind games. One word, delay. No matter what the reason was, it was to delay and not renew the contract so early. Niu Meiling was flustered and exasperated, but she couldn't do anything to Mo Shaowan. She couldn't help it. She wanted to find a chance to bypass Mo Shaowan to persuade Murphy. But at this time, Murphy was also arranged by Mo Shaowan, who noticed in advance. She asked for sick leave and went home. Her communication tools were temporarily taken over by Mo Shaowan. Now Murphy, who was sick, was watching TV in the living room. She hid in Yang Yi's place and planned to stay for a few days. Of course, Murphy herself didn't want to see such a situation happen. She wanted to record the song well. She had been looking forward to being able to push out this album with too many hopes as soon as possible. However, now the process had to be delayed. Naturally, she felt uncomfortable in her heart. Fortunately, she knew that Yang Yi and Murphy were doing it for her own good, so she didn't do anything stupid at this time. And on Yang Yi's side, Murphy was happily entangled by the little girl who hadn't seen her mother for a long time. She chattered and her mood gradually improved. What news? Why am I on the news? Yang Yi came out of the bedroom, a little confused. He was such a low-key person, how could he be on the news? Papa, come sit with me. She snuggled up to her mother to watch TV. When she saw her father come out, she happily patted the spot beside her. She especially liked the feeling of being sandwiched between her parents. It gave her a sense of security. When Yang Yi sat down, Murphy pointed at the television and said with a smile, Director Chen is coming to Jiangnan to film a TV series. Isn't Soldier Assault your book? On the TV, Chen Fengchen and a few others were talking to a group of reporters on stage. However, behind them was another period drama. Murphy said with some regret, You're late. Just now, when Director Chen was answering the reporters' questions, he mentioned you and your book. He said that he would be coming to Jiangnan next month to prepare for the new production team. I also heard Papa's name. Shishi raised her small hand to prove for her mother. Yang Yi smiled and rubbed Shishi's little head. He said to Murphy, "It's okay. The copyright has been sold. The rest is up to Director Chin. I don't have the right to interfere. I can only hope that Director Chin lives up to his reputation and can film it well." Yang Yi did not ignore the fact that his book had been adapted into a TV series like before. He still hoped that the TV series could be filmed at the level of his previous life and not ruin the original classic. However, there was no other way. Chen Fengchen had always been a strong director and did not allow anyone to interfere with his TV series. Even Yang Yi, the original author, could not. All the adaptations and filming were done by him, or someone he trusted. If it were not for the fact that his previous works were really good, Yang Yi really did not want to hand these two works over to Chen Fengchen. Now that Yang Yi was also studying the script, he was thinking of selling the film rights of the novel in the future, and directly selling the finished script. If he filmed it according to his script, at least it would not deviate too much from the original plot, right? However, Yang Yi had not read the script of any movie or TV series. He did not know that he would transmigrate, so why would he read the script? Therefore, learning to write a script from scratch was a little difficult. At this time, a reporter on TV asked Chen Fengchen, "Director Chen, has the lead actor of Soldier's Assault been confirmed? We are more curious about who Su Sanduo is. Who will play Qing Kai?" It wasn't that a mere bestseller was enough to make all the reporters familiar with it. Now there were reporters who could easily say the names Su Sanduo and Qing Kai. The main reason was that Chen Fengchen had already released the rumor that he was going to select actors for the new drama. Naturally, the all-pervasive reporters had done their homework. Soldier's Assault is a very excellent story. Not only does it tell the growth of an ordinary soldier from a village, but it also created many vivid characters. Therefore, I do not think that Su Sanduo and Qing Kai are the only leads in this TV series that I am directing. The other characters, such as Captain Yuan Lang, Squad Leader Shi Jin, Wu Lu Yi, Gao Cheng, and so on, can all be said to be the main characters of this TV series, or even the main leads. Chen Fengchen's Tai Chi was not bad. He perfectly resolved the questions that the reporters threw out, because they were eager to know which actor he was going to work with. Now was not the time to disclose this information. As an experienced director, Chen Fengchen naturally knew the benefits of appropriately whetting the public's appetite. However, the reporters were still unwilling to let him go. One of the reporters who was called out immediately asked, "Director Chen, we all know that you are famous for nurturing new actors. Then will the cast for Soldier's Assault also be selected from some C or D-list stars or even non-professional actors?" "Who said that?" "I also like to nurture actors who have been famous for a long time. Look, isn't Jie Yuchen sitting next to me?" Chen Fengchen pointed at the male actor who came with him for the press conference. Jie Yuchen could be considered a quasi-A-list actor, but he still trembled when he sat next to the old man. He could only smile helplessly when he was teased. "All right, this is the press conference for Great Chu's Palace. Please ask more questions related to it. I'll say one more thing about Soldier's Assault. I won't answer any more questions. Currently, the cast for Su Sanduo hasn't been confirmed. I've had many actors audition during this time, but the results didn't satisfy me. Therefore, I can't rule out the possibility of selecting new actors. If anyone wants to try out for this role, you can send a video of your audition to Assistant Ruan's email." Chen Fengchen's words immediately caused an uproar among the reporters. They all wanted to ask, "Is this an audition for the main lead? Does Director Chen have any special requirements? Why don't the other actors fit?" However, Chen Fengchen was a man of his words. He sat there with a smile and didn't say a word. After a while, the reporters had no choice but to change their questions. Now that the news was no longer about Yang Yi's book, Murphy smiled and said to Yang Yi, "Director Chen isn't bad. He wants to choose the best actor for your book." Yes, Su Sanduo's role isn't easy to choose. Actors who don't have any experience in the countryside probably won't be able to play it well. I'm more agreeable to Director Chen using new actors. Many of the young people who play extras nowadays are from the countryside. Yangi nodded. You guys aren't listening to me. She was unhappy. She sat in the middle and felt that her presence was very low. She, what did you say? Murphy quickly followed. I said that they stopped talking about Yang Yi. She pouted and said, I couldn't hear Papa's name. Yang Yi and Murphy were stunned for a moment, then they couldn't help but laugh. This little fellow was really listening attentively. Chapter 226. Springfield Kindergarten's curriculum was very interesting. The teachers didn't just force the kids to learn, they focused more on enlightening the kids' abilities. For example, the first 2 weeks of learning how to write. After the teachers taught the kids how to write the strokes, they asked the kids to go home and study how to write their names with their parents. It was this kind of exploration that allowed the kids to understand the structure of words. In the future, they didn't need the teachers to teach them word by word. They could learn how to write other words by imitating them. Of course, this writing lesson was just a beginner's lesson. It was not suitable for these half-grown children to lie on their desks and crawl all day long. After the teachers had enlightened their basic writing skills, they started other more interesting lessons. For example, this week's handicraft class was held. Although it was held to enlighten the kids' hands-on skills, it was very popular with the kids. She liked it very much. Almost every day after she came back from kindergarten, she would look forward to going to kindergarten the next day. Under the guidance of Miss Shen, who was good at all kinds of handicrafts, she and the other kids seemed to have entered a new world. On the first day, she brought home a heart made of folded red paper. This was even plagiarized by the despicable dad. Yang Yi took a picture of it and sent it to Murphy. He didn't even tell Murphy that it was she who folded it. On the second day, she brought home a big cardboard. On the cardboard, there was a pattern of trees and flowers made with colored shreds of paper and a watercolor pen. On the third day, she brought home a handmade phone that Ms. Shen taught them to make with 2 paper cups and a cotton thread to play with. She, who didn't understand the principle behind it, was very happy to show her mother the magic of whispering. On the fourth day, yesterday, it was finally the weekend. Ms. Shen demonstrated to the kids in class and gave them the instruction manual. She also gave the kids and their parents a parent-child assignment. Mom, Dad, and the baby have to make a doll out of the discarded fabric at home. Fortunately, it was a small assignment. Otherwise, she would have pestered her dad to go to kindergarten to play with Ms. Shen on the weekend. Mo Sansui, on the other hand, was very interested in Shishi's handiwork. He had been preparing the materials in high spirits since last night. She found the bib that Yang Yi had bought for Shishi, but Shishi wasn't a 1-year-old child, so she didn't need it. It was made of 100% pure cotton, and felt very comfortable to the touch. Furthermore, it was light pink and the color was pure and elegant. It was suitable for making dolls. As for the cotton wool used for stuffing, Murphy didn't want to use medical cotton. She directly opened Yang Yi's pillow and took out a handful. She even snickered and ran over to Yang Yi to ask him if he knew where she got this ball of cotton. Left with no choice, Yang Yi could only serve her according to the family rules. Without a pillow, the two of them could only sleep on the same bed that night. Yang Yi slept on Murphy's pillow, and Murphy slept on Yang Yi's body. Cough cough. It was worth mentioning that Yang Yi didn't have a needle and thread at home. Although he was an artistic killer who could embroider in his heart, he didn't really know how to embroider. Spider-Man and Hybian King knew how to make clothes for themselves, but Yang Yi didn't. Usually when his clothes were torn, he would just throw them away and change them. Why would he ever think of sewing them himself? Therefore his pillow couldn't be mended. The next day he had to find a place to buy needles and thread for Murphy and Shishi to make handiwork for them. Yang Yi really didn't know where to buy needles and thread for mending. Fortunately he had Ding Xiang, who lived frugally and continued to wear clothes after they were torn, to consult him. Brother Yang, is it because Shishi's clothes are torn? Give them to me. I'll go back to the dormitory and bring them back for you. Taking advantage of the fact that there were many customers during the weekend, Ding Xiang, who came to open the shop early, kindly wanted to help Yang Yi save money. You don't need to buy needles and thread. You don't need it anyway. It's such a waste. After knowing the real purpose of Yang Yi's purchase of needles and thread, Ding Xiang wanted to give her needles and thread to Yang Yi, but Yang Yi politely refused this kind girl. He didn't want needles or thread. He just wanted to know where to buy needles and thread. After a lot of trouble, Yang Yi finally bought back the needle box, pink thread, and his new pillow that Murphy wanted in the afternoon. Finally, it was time to start making handmade dolls. Yang Yi looked at the excited Murphy and kindly reminded her, "Murphy, you can't do all the procedures by yourself. This is a parent-child task. You have to let Shishi join in." The little girl, who had been squatting by the side and looking eagerly, nodded quickly. She blinked her big eyes and said, "Mom, I want to play too." Shishi wasn't the only one who wanted to play. Seeing the balls of cotton wool, the three kittens raised their tails and circled around with interest. They watched the reactions of their owners and looked for opportunities to sneak in and touch them. However, Murphy was very vigilant and drove them away. She spread out the manual, pointed down step by step, and said, "Shishi certainly wants to join in, but Shishi, Mom has to tell you that you can't touch needles. The sewing work must be done by Mom or Papa. You can help Mom and Mom, okay?" "Okay," Shishi answered happily. No matter what she did, as long as she could join in, it was fine. "I don't need to, right? I'll help you drive the kittens away." Yang Yi hurriedly waved his hand. Wasn't threading the needle something that the girls and Dongfang Booby played with? There was still a way to deal with little Gray Dodo and little Guai. Yang Yi took out the catmint dolls that he bought a few days ago. In fact, they were just small dolls with bags of catmint stuffed in them. There were exactly 3 of them in a set, and Yang Yi threw them all out. When he threw them out, the British Shorthairs didn't pay attention. Only the active little Gray turned its head to take a look, but it didn't seem to be as attractive as the balls of cotton wool. However, Dodo's sensitive nose seemed to have smelled something. It ran cheerfully to the nearest doll and sniffed. Suddenly, the 2 pupils of Dodo's eyes turned from slits to big round beads. With a meow, Dodo's 2 paws pounced on the doll, and then started to bite. It didn't seem like it was dealing with an enemy. After biting for a while, Dodo twisted its body and used every part of its big round face to rub the catmint doll hard. In a short while, the 3 catmint dolls found their respective partners, and then they were brutally ravaged by their partners. The filthy scene was simply unbearable to watch. In any case, the 3 little fellows didn't have the energy to disturb Yang Yi and the others for the time being. However, Murphy still arranged a task for Yang Yi. "No, Mr. Shun said that he wants parents and children to make this doll together. Yang Yi, how can you not do your homework?" Murphy looked at Yang Yi's flustered look, chuckled, and said, "Come, take this bib and cut off the bumps on the edges." Yang Yi had no choice but to sit down as well. Fortunately, he was only using scissors. He could play with anything related to knives. Grabbing the center of the scissors, he moved the scissors in a circle. The raised parts were all cut out, leaving only an oval piece of cloth. Murphy wasn't idle either. She rolled the cotton wool into strips and she followed suit. Then, according to Mr. Shun's instructions, the strips were stacked together and rolled into a sturdy and beautiful ball. "It's a bit too big." Mr. Shun said that the diameter is about 3 centimeters. "Ours is a bit too big, but it's okay. Let's make a bigger doll." Murphy smiled at Shishi, who was curiously poking the ball. "Okay, make a big one. I like big dolls," Shishi replied happily. Chapter 227. A man who once wiped blood on the tip of a knife, now has to learn how to thread a needle. How sad is that? Perhaps the world will mourn and weep for him. But when Yang Yi really learned how to thread a needle, not only did he not feel sad or sad, but he was secretly happy. Wow. Papa is amazing. The little girl who was shouting in surprise at the side was the source of this secret joy. When she saw her father casually thread the needle through the thin needle hole, she couldn't help but stand up. Her small mouth became a circle, and her big eyes were full of surprise and worship. How did he do it? Although it was the first time Yang Yi threaded a needle, he still helped Murphy, but who asked him to have good eyesight, thick and long fingers that were also very flexible. He passed the pass in one try. Shishi, do you want to try? After being worshipped by his daughter, this guy was a little complacent. and he pulled out the thread that had already been threaded. Murphy, who was about to take the needle and thread, saw this scene. She was angry and laughed. She said angrily, "You hold the tip of the needle, don't prick your daughter." She caught the tip of the thread and was eager to try, but when she heard the word prick, the little girl was a little scared. She held the thread with her right hand and retracted it, while her left hand repeatedly waved and timidly said, "I'm scared, Papa, I'm scared, prick is very painful." "It's okay, you can't prick it. Look at the sharp end, Papa is holding it." Yang comforted the little girl and said with a smile, "Just look here and thread the tip of the thread through this small hole." "Okay, Papa, you have to be careful." She hesitated for a moment, but still summoned the courage to walk over. While carefully holding her father's shoulder, she carefully observed the needle hole. "Here, take the thread and thread it." Yang encouraged the little girl. However, although Shishi's eyesight was very good, but when she was about to step on the hole, her little hand shook, and the hateful thread couldn't get through. Her small hands were trembling so much that the thread was swaying left and right. It was a stark contrast to her father's steady hands. "I don't know how to do it, Papa will do it." Shishi tried for a while, and finally lost her patience. She pouted her small mouth unhappily. "Daddy will show you the magic of piercing the needle," Yang said excitedly to Shishi. He especially enjoyed his daughter's admiring eyes. Sure. Since Shishi didn't have to do it herself, she became lively again. She jumped over happily and leaned her soft body on her father's shoulder. Murphy was also very curious about how Yang could thread without looking at the needle hole. She held the small ball of cotton in her hand and also moved over. Two pairs of eyes, one big and one small, were looking at Yang. "Watch carefully." Yang held the needle in his left hand and the thread in his right. He sucked on the end of the thread with his mouth. Then he turned his hands around so that the back of his hands was facing himself. The side holding the needle and thread was facing Murphy. "Wait a minute, I want to see." She quickly ran to her mother's side and sat in her mother's arms. Then she giggled and said, "It's done." Yang really didn't want to see. Not only did he block it with the back of his hand, he also turned his head to avoid arousing suspicion. He only saw his finger touching the position of the needle hole. Then, based on the feeling with his right hand, he pinched the end of the thread and moved it over. Wow! Murphy couldn't help but cover her mouth and shout. She saw very clearly that the end of the thread was very stable. It was pressed horizontally against the needle hole. Yang Yi's right hand gently moved, and the thread went through. Then, Yang Yi really did it like embroidering. His ring finger and little finger replaced his index finger and thumb to press the thread. His index finger and thumb moved forward along the needle hole and felt the end of the thread passing through. Then he gently pulled, as if his whole body was relaxed. Awesome, awesome. Murphy couldn't help but clap her hands. She followed suit and clapped her hands vigorously. The little girl clapped her hands until they were red. She kept giggling with her head raised. After letting Yang Yi show off for a while, he still had to continue making the doll. Murphy followed Teacher Shun's instructions and tied up the ball of cotton wool with another thread. This would be the head of the doll. Of course, there would be a little tail after it was tied up. Help Mom hold it first. Hold it here. Be careful. Murphy gave Shishi a small task. The little girl held the ball of cotton wool and helped by the side. At this time, Yang Yi continued to cut the cotton cloth into 2 pieces according to Murphy's instructions. Murphy took the long piece out, folded it in half, and sewed it on according to the instructions to make a small pocket. It's Shishi's turn. Murphy smiled. She opened the small pocket and pointed at the cotton wool next to it. She said, "Shishi, help Mom get some cotton wool and stuff it in." It felt so good to be able to help. Shishi was full of motivation. She squatted down for a while, then stood up for a while. She kept stuffing the small pocket with cotton wool. Her little face was filled with a happy smile. However, she didn't know how to make a lot of cotton wool at once and then tear it open to stuff it in. "Okay, it's almost done. Shishi, give the ball to Mom," Murphy said. Yang Yi had nothing to do now, so he watched from the side. He saw Murphy stuffing the neck of the ball of cotton wool into the pocket. Then, the head was tightly pressed against the opening of the pocket. After sewing the line to make it firm, the prototype of the doll was already formed. However, it wasn't over yet. Murphy took the remaining square piece of cotton cloth. She sewed the 4 sides of the cloth and then folded it diagonally. She took the prototype that she had just made and wrapped the head in the center of the cotton cloth. This part was a bit complicated. Mo-Fei did it alone, while Cece squatted next to her. Her little face was tense, as if she was the one who was sewing, and she was so nervous that she pursed her lips. The smooth side was the face, and the wrinkled side was the hair. Then, she tied a knot at the 2 ends of the bottom line. After sewing the thread, a simple doll was completed. Okay, it's done. Murphy shook the doll in her hand and handed it to Shishi. She smiled and asked, Shishi, what do you think? It looks good. Shishi quickly nodded. She pouted her little mouth and said to her mother, it looks better than Teacher Shun's. Really? Then I'm so happy. Murphy grinned from ear to ear. She was happier than if she had released a platinum album. But I don't want to bring it to Teacher Shun. I like it too, Shishi said hesitantly to her mother, hugging the doll tightly. Why? Murphy was puzzled. Because I want to hug it to sleep at night. Shishi felt that this doll was extraordinary. It was made by her father, mother, and Shishi. It had completely replaced the original Big Bear in her heart. You can still get it back after you hand in your homework. Murphy didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she corrected Shishi's wrong idea. Then she turned to Yang Yi, who was watching TV, and said, Yang Yi, quickly promise your daughter that you and Teacher Shen will help Shishi get this doll back. Oh, I promise. Yang Yi's answer was perfunctory. What are you watching? Murphy asked curiously. I'm not watching anything. Yang Yi was still trying to hide it in a panic. Murphy walked over suspiciously and saw that the TV was playing the recording of yesterday's Fast Music, Fast Music. Then on the TV, she was affectionately singing the song, I Came Across the Ocean to See You. If you want to watch, then turn on the sound. Why are you being so sneaky? Mo-Fei blushed and pinched the soft part of Yang Yi's waist, although it was not soft at all. Last night, the show started at 10 o'clock. Shishi had already fallen asleep. Yang Yi and Murphy were sitting in the living room watching the show. Murphy didn't want to watch it. She felt that she was ugly on variety shows, but Yang Yi insisted on watching it. He especially wanted to hear her sing the song, I Came Across the Ocean to See You. Even now, Murphy could still remember Yang Yi's expression at that time. He listened and watched with special attention, just like a little fanboy. Tell me, when you sang this song, were you thinking of me? Yang Yi listened attentively, taking in all the changes in her expression. Then he carried Murphy in his arms and looked at her as he gently asked this question. Murphy stubbornly denied it at that time, but she couldn't help but laugh. You're still denying it. You didn't stay abroad with Shishi, but you came back across the ocean. If it wasn't for me, who else could it be? Yang Yi tickled her. Murphy couldn't stand being tickled. She struggled for a moment before confessing amidst laughter. However, it was too late to confess. She had underestimated the inhumane rules of the Yang family. Yang Yi didn't give her a chance to explain, and directly punished her with the family rules. Just as she was punished for resisting being strict and taking out the pillow. The energetic Yang Yi made Murphy kneel on the sofa in the living room to repent. Then she was tortured by yoga on the big bed. In the end, Murphy, who almost fainted in the clouds, sat in jail for a long time. Murphy couldn't remember what happened after that. When she woke up the next day, just as mentioned earlier, she was sharing a bed with Yang Yi. How I wish I could send you off 1,000 miles, until the end of the world, and spend the rest of my life with you. Yang Yi didn't know when he had listened to her, and turned up the volume of the TV. Murphy was pulled back from the memories of her blushing face yesterday by her own singing. Ouch! Yang Yi pulled his foot back in pain. He was stepped on by Murphy, but it wasn't too painful. He looked at Murphy in confusion. What's wrong? Why did you step on me? Who told you to always think of doing bad things? Murphy said angrily with a red face. What bad things? Yang Yi really couldn't understand. He was just listening to Murphy sing, and he was doing bad things? What kind of logic was this? Chapter 228. On Monday, Shishi happily carried her dolls to kindergarten. Every child brought their own dolls. However, not all of them were made by their parents. Lan Xian was very pitiful. She pouted and complained to Shishi. My father is on a business trip, and my mother can't make the dolls. The nanny and auntie help me. In fact, according to Ms. Shun's instructions, every child's dolls were similar. The only difference was the color of the cloth. The boys' dolls were mainly blue, white, and brown, while the girls' dolls were in a variety of colors. Shishi's pink doll was more popular, but there were also some dolls in purple, magenta, light green, and beige. However, the differences still had to be shown. Ms. Shun selected a few children who did a good job and sewed the dolls well to praise. Although they were all little girls, most of them were boys. After all, their dolls were made by their mothers. Shishi was one of 2 little girls who were praised. The other one was Chen Shiyin, whose boxing coach father married a nurse mother who was clever and skillful. Cece's doll was praised because it had a little hat sewn with a piece of red cloth compared to other children's dolls. On Sunday when Mo Fei was bored, she cut a piece of red cloth and added it to Cece's hat. When Ms. Shun praised Shishi, she specially took out her doll and showed it to all the children. She also interviewed the little girl. Shishi, why did you think of adding a cap here? Shishi stood up and crossed her hands in front of her chest. She was a little shy, but she said honestly, Mom made it. Mom said that Little Red Riding Hood is very brave and smart. She wants Shishi to be like Little Red Riding Hood. Huh. Why is Little Red Riding Hood so brave and smart? Miss Shun asked curiously. Because Little Red Riding Hood defeated the big bad wolf and saved her grandmother. Shishi raised her head and said proudly, My papa told me. Wow. The children in the circle all cried out in surprise. Is the big bad wolf very scary? Yang Luoqi shrunk her head and asked timidly. I've seen the big bad wolf in the zoo. It's not scary at all. It's even smaller than my dog. Chen Shiyin shouted. Lan Xian pouted and said unhappily, Who said it's not scary? My father said that if I don't listen to him, he will let the big bad wolf eat me. Miss Shun was a little dumbfounded. After the children finished talking, she whispered to Shishi and pulled Shishi to the middle. She clapped her hands and said, Shishi told me the story of Little Red Riding Hood is very interesting. Shall we ask Shishi to tell us the story of Little Red Riding Hood Hood? The children were all clapping their hands with all their might. Chen Shiyin was even competing with Lan Xian. Everyone had already stopped, but the 2 of them were still clapping nonstop. Miss Shun smiled and stepped aside. But after the teacher left, Shishi became nervous. This was the first time that Shishi told a story to others. It was different from the feeling of telling a story to her parents. Her friends were all staring at her. Shishi felt that she was a little speechless. This story, it's me, it's my papa who told me. Shishi began to stammer, but the more she stuttered, the more nervous she became. Fortunately, Miss Shun helped her out. She said with a smile, It's okay, Shishi. Take your time. Let's applaud for Shishi, okay? At the side, Mr. Mu even passed Cece's doll to her. Hugging the doll, and having a prop to rely on, the little girl stuttered as she continued to tell the story. Papa said that Grandma gave that little sister a Little Red Riding Hood, and she liked it very much. Later, she called it Little Red Riding Hood. Cece held her doll, and pointed at the red hat and said, Later Grandma got sick. Mama said, Little Red Riding Hood, give Grandma a cake. Grandma will not get sick after eating the cake. Cece's narration was lacking in weight and vocabulary, but in the ears of the other children, it was just like a great adventure story. It was no less exciting. All the children, including Chen Shiyin, listened attentively. Their eyes were glued to Shishi, and they did not even blink. From giving the cake to Grandma, to talking with the big bad wolf on the road, and then the big bad wolf ran to Grandma's house and tricked Grandma into opening the door, eating Grandma, and then pretending to be Grandma lying on the bed. Shishi's story was indeed short of many details, such as the happy experience of Little Red Riding Hood on the road, and the psychological activities of the big bad wolf. But what was rare was that Shishi remembered the main plot of the story, and told it in an orderly way. The children were nervous at this time. Lan Xian clenched her little fists and pursed her lips tightly, as if she was Little Red Riding Hood, afraid that she would be eaten by the big bad wolf when she opened the door. Little Red Riding Hood went to Grandma's house. The big bad wolf was on Grandma's bed and wanted to eat Little Red Riding Hood. Cece still left out a lot of details, but her narration was still thrilling. She hugged the doll tightly, and the atmosphere became tense. But Little Red Riding Hood saw it. She had a happy smile on her face. The little girl became more fluent, and her voice became more cheerful because of Little Red Riding Hood. She saw the big bad wolf's hand. It was so hairy and had claws. It was so scary. Then what should we do? Lan Xian grabbed young Luoqi's hand in fear. Young Luoqi was also very scared. The two girls huddled together and hugged each other for warmth. Little Red Riding Hood is very smart. She told the big bad wolf that she was going to get the cake. She said. The plot of the story was different from the original. Yang Yi changed the story for Shi, saying that Little Red Riding Hood tricked the big bad wolf into leaving the cake outside the house. In fact, although Little Red Riding Hood found the cake, she was still eaten by the big bad wolf. In the end, the hunter came to save her. Then Little Red Riding Hood went to find the hunter uncle. The hunter helped her defeat the big bad wolf, and then saved Grandma. She finished the story. Wasn't Grandma eaten? Nan Xiaoyu listened carefully. He raised his little hand and asked. Because Grandma was in the big bad wolf's stomach. The hunter uncle cut open the big bad wolf's stomach, and Grandma came out. She drew a circle on her hand and gestured. Very good. Thank you, Shi, for telling us the story. What do you think? Mr. Shen came up with a smile and patted Shi's shoulder. Yes. The group of children nodded excitedly, as if they were the brave and smart Little Red Riding Hood. So this story tells us. Mr. Shen was still talking, but Shi didn't listen. The little girl was full of joy as she puffed out her chest. She had finished telling a story, and she had even finished telling it completely. There was no need to mention how great this sense of accomplishment was. At this moment, Shi was waiting for school to finish. She wanted to go home and tell her parents about this story. However, it was still early, and it was not noon yet. She might have to wait for a long time. She didn't notice that the other children were looking at her eagerly. Lan Xian, Yang Luoqi, and Chen Shiyan were waiting for her to have lunch together. But this time, they were not waiting for Shi's father's delicious food, but for Shi's story. The children all wanted the class to end quickly, so that they could gather around Shi and ask her if there were any other interesting stories. It seemed that the little girl was going to be the center of attention again. Chapter 229. Murphy had not returned on Monday. Niu Meiling, who had received the news from her subordinates, could not sit still. The next morning, she called Mo Xiaowan and gave her an ultimatum. Come to my office. Let's talk about Murphy. Mo Xiaowan was not timid, and went to the meeting alone. What does Murphy mean? She's grown up now and doesn't want to renew the contract with the company, right? When Mo Xiaowan walked in, Niu Meiling gave her a show of strength. She wanted to suppress Mo Xiaowan with her imposing manner. However, Mo Xiaowan was not Murphy. She smiled and said, Hey sisterling, why are you angry? This contract renewal is not a small matter like eating and sleeping. We have to talk about it slowly. Slow. Is this the attitude of wanting to talk to me? Niu Meiling snorted. It's been more than a week and Murphy hasn't said anything. She even hid and refused to see me. I think you guys have a guilty conscience. Sister Fei is sick today. She has a cold and cough, so she can't talk much. That's why I told her to rest at home and protect her golden voice. Mo Xiaowan smiled and said, And sisterling, don't you know who has a guilty conscience? Niu Meiling was shocked and angry. Mo Xiaowan, you're talking to me like that? What's with your attitude? Sorry, sisterling. I'm a quick talker and can't control myself. It's my fault, please forgive me. Mo Xiaowan smiled as she apologized, but she didn't mean to apologize at all. This girl was actually a little tired of Niu Meiling's aggressive attitude. She almost couldn't help but flip the table. Humph. Niu Meiling was furious. However, before Mo Shawan could finish, she still smiled charmingly and said, Sister Ling, actually, we also have the sincerity to renew the contract. But we can't just go all out, right? What kind of sincerity was the company showing? Our sister Faye is currently holding up the contract, and there is still half a year left before the contract expires. You want her to renew the contract, and even renew this kind of 7-year trash contract? It's fine if you want to fool the newcomer, but don't think that our sister Faye is simple and easy to fool. Mo Shawan was still smiling as she spoke, but the sharpness in her words had already been revealed. That was then, and this is now. I have also told Murphy about her performance when she signed the contract before, and what her performance is now. The company's situation is not as optimistic as it used to be. Signing this contract with her is already a concession on account of her previous contributions to the company. Niu Miling's tone relaxed as she persuaded. Sister Ling, don't play this game with us. Sister Faye's results were so bad after her return. At first, we didn't know what was going on, but later on, we more or less understood. Don't you know that the company didn't really support Sister Faye's return? Mo Shawan smiled slightly, but her heart was holding back a ball of fire. Isn't the company going to support Murphy? What are you talking about? Niu Miling became angry and reprimanded. We won't delve into the past, but Sister Ling, why are you in such a hurry to renew the contract now? Why don't you wait for our sister Faye to release this album and see what kind of results it will have? See if she can once again reproduce the glory of the platinum album of the past before considering renewing the contract? Mo Shawan asked with a smile. Impossible. If Murphy doesn't renew the contract, we can't release an album for her. She can drag it out, but let's see if the company dares to freeze her. Niu Miling's face was left behind by Mo Shawan again and again, so she simply shed all pretense of cordiality and threatened. Mo Shawan narrowed her eyes, like a cat, and her smile disappeared. However, she didn't lose her temper, but gently, as if a friend was persuading her, she said softly, Sister Ling, our sister Faye's contract has less than a year left. If you freeze her, our sister Faye can afford to wait. At worst, she can take the new album to another company to record in a year. It's not like you don't know that these 12 songs were authorized by Muzi Ong to our sister Faye, not to you. Niu Miling's breath couldn't help but stagnate, and her nose was almost crooked from anger. Is Murphy's wings hard now? She's determined to leave? Look at what you're saying, Sister Ling. Just now, that Sister Faye's words were said by you first, right? Our sister Faye has deep feelings for you and Tianmei, so of course she can't bear to leave. However, if you insist on forcing her, and even use words like freezing her, I'm afraid she'll be forced to leave by you no matter how determined she is. Mo Shawan recovered her smile, and looked like she was grinning. Niu Miling took a deep breath, and calmed her mood. Although Mo Shawan was very annoying, and made Niu Miling a little confused, Niu Miling had to admit that Mo Xiaozhuan's words were reasonable. She also had a deep understanding of Murphy's personality, and she had even worked with Murphy longer than Mo Shawan. This child was cold on the outside, but warm on the inside, and had a stubborn personality. She could be tied down with emotions, but if she was really forced, she might run away. What's Murphy's attitude? Does she still want to talk to the company about renewing the contract? Niu Miling asked coldly. Of course she wants to talk, but the company has to show some sincerity, Mo Shawan said with a grin. Mo Shawan was actually cursing in her heart. Talk my ass, my sister Faye wants to leave. However, on the surface, she still had to do it. Mo Shawan didn't know that Yang Yi had resources. She was inclined to use Tianmei to raise Murphy's status first, and then leave when the contract expired. Falling out with her was probably the last resort. Ahem, actually I don't think we need to settle things now, Sister Ling, Mo Shawan said with a smile. This year is still long, and you don't know how Sister Faye will develop. If, say that the company takes out the contract, and then Sister Faye and Sister Ling renew the contract, how will you set the liquidated damages? You don't know how popular Sister Faye's album will be after it's released. If there are still companies that think that Sister Faye is more valuable than the liquidated damages you set, What will you do if they pay the liquidated damages to poach her? Mo Xiaowan said bewitchingly. Niu Miling frowned. In the face of benefits, she forgot about Murphy's feelings for the company. Or in her opinion, there was no feeling that could not be betrayed. It was just that the money given was not enough to make up for the price of her betrayal. Obviously this time, the negotiation between Niu Miling and Mo Xiaowan reached a deadlock. The two parted on bad terms, but fortunately, they didn't completely fall out with each other. After Mo Xiaowan left, Niu Miling called the executives of the company for a meeting with a sullen face. After Mo Xiaowan left the company, she didn't stay idle. She rushed to Tingshan without stopping and came to the small studio building that was being renovated. In the end, Mo Xiaowan used the funds given by Yang Yi to buy a 3-story building. The location wasn't prosperous, but it was convenient for transportation. It was suitable for Murphy's studio. However, the entire building had to be renovated. Mo Xiaowan felt that this would be their new base. No matter what, she couldn't treat herself badly. She wore a mask and found Xiao AI, who was supervising the work. The two chatted while checking the progress of the project. Xiao AI, did your family nag you after you resigned? Mo Xiaowan asked with a smile as she held Xiao AI's hand and leaned against her soft body. Nag? How could they not nag? Last weekend, my mother came over and told me that I didn't want a stable job and had to resign. I don't know what I was doing all day. Then she said that I was so tired recently. How could I find a boyfriend in the future? Wan, you have to compensate me. Xiao AI also smiled and said to Mo Xiaowan. Of course. You'll be a veteran of our sister Faye's studio in the future. Your salary will definitely be much higher than before. For now, you'll have to suffer. Mo Xiaowan pinched Xiao AI's chubby face and then snorted. Men are nothing. If they look down on us, we'll look down on them too. That's right. They force me to go on blind dates all day. I'm so annoyed by those stinky men. Xiao AI echoed. If you ask me, don't listen to your mother. What's the hurry? Let's start our career first, and then slowly choose later. There are plenty of good men. Mo Xiaowan said proudly. Anyway, I don't think the men who come on blind dates are good. But I'm afraid that if I don't get married in a few years, I'll become an old leftover woman. Xiao AI said worriedly. It doesn't matter. I'll protect you. Whoever says you're a leftover woman, I'll beat him to death. Mo Xiaowan waved her pink fist and said fiercely. Hee okay. Xiao AI snickered. At this time, Mo Xiaojuan's phone rang. She took it out and looked at it. Seeing that it was another call from Niu Miling, the corners of Mo Xiaojuan's mouth curled up slightly. Looks like it's done. Chapter 230. The contract renewal issue was finally temporarily resolved. Of course, as Mo Xiaowan had expected, the negotiations were temporarily put on hold. Niu Miling also privately promised Mo Xiaowan that she would not do anything to Murphy in exchange for Murphy's return. In fact, Niu Miling did compromise on this issue. She was a smart person and quickly distinguished the pros and cons. Since she could not coax or force Murphy to sign a low-level contract, Niu Miling had to change her mind and treat Murphy as a real platinum singer. Naturally, she could not continue to suppress her, and she had to make a 180-degree turn. Niu Miling had ordered her subordinates to fully support Murphy's new album. It was fine if they earned less from Murphy. Although Niu Miling's heart was bleeding, she would never allow Murphy, the ace she still cared about, to fall into someone else's hands after the contract ended. Based on her understanding of Murphy, Niu Miling felt that as long as she maintained her relationship with Murphy, with so many years of cooperation and friendship, she could firmly tie Murphy and her Tianmei together. However, Niu Miling only considered the possibility of Murphy jumping ship to another company or another company to poach her family's pillar. She did not think that there was another possibility for Murphy, establishing her own family. Niu Miling also did not think that Mo Xiaowan, this audacious girl, would rely on her brother-in-law's financial support during the contract period to poach a few girls from her company and start her own business outside. Of course, Niu Miling's strategy was not bad. Murphy was indeed easily dominated by feelings. under her care, she might be reluctant to leave Tianmei. Then it will depend on your ability, brother-in-law. After Yang Yi sent Murphy back, Mo Shaowan quietly talked to Yang Yi on the phone. She analyzed the changes in Tianmei and Niu Meiling's thoughts, then laughed and said, "You have to work hard to snatch Sister Fei from Tianmei." Okay. Yang Yi agreed. Yang Yi was not too worried that Murphy would be reluctant to terminate the contract with Tianmei. What kind of master and disciple relationship could compare to her feelings for him? He brother-in-law, I think highly of you. You can use both hard and soft tactics. My sister definitely won't be able to stand it, and will agree to it in the end. Mo Shaowan said meaningfully. Of course, this will have to be done slowly. A small stream flows long. Cece's bedtime stories had already passed the new release period, and many bookstores had taken this book off the shelves. Only the state-run bookstores continued to sell it, and a few private bookstores that were optimistic still placed this fairy tale book in the most conspicuous position. In Guangdong province, the reputation of Shishi's bedtime stories gradually spread among the group of parents. There was even a situation where it was difficult to get a book. Fortunately, the people in Sahara reacted quickly and released advertisements for online sales channels in the local influential media. Many parents who had opened online banking took advantage of the bank's activities to give it a try. They registered and logged into the Sahara online mall and bought Shishi's bedtime stories. Although the courier fee was included, after deducting the website discount, the price of the online mall was a few yuan lower than that of an ordinary bookstore. With this plan in mind, they gradually realized the benefits of this online mall. Even if they did not buy anything, they still had the mentality of looking and comparing the price of the goods in the online mall with the price in the physical store in reality. In addition, from this month onwards, the online mall specially cooperated with the manufacturers of infant products and children's products to organize activities. In particular, the imported infant products such as milk powder and diapers on the counter were much cheaper than those bought in the supermarket. Seems like it's quite cost-effective. Although many people were deeply wary of online shopping, there were also many people who were moved by the difference in price and chose to buy. Even mothers who did not dare to buy would chat with the mothers around them and tell others about the discount during their leisure time. The fame of the online mall spread little by little. The back-end monitoring staff of the Sahara Online Mall could see that the sales data were increasing exponentially every day. It seemed that these were all driven by Shishi's bedtime stories, but the specific analysis was not so. At the end of the day, this was a reflection of the superiority of the online mall's price after reducing the intermediate channels. In any case, the sales of Shishi's bedtime stories also began to rise. As more and more people read it, a good reputation began to spread out of Guangdong province. Until one day, a netizen who originally went to the Sahara Online Mall to buy the book Drawing Sword saw the online mall's large banner promoting it. By Yang Yi? Doesn't Yang Yi write military novels? Although he's been playing with crime themes recently, when did he write a fairy tale book? The non-diehard fan of Yang Yi was curious. He specifically went to the online customer service of the online mall and confirmed that the book was indeed written by Yang Yi. Interesting. Did Yang Yi also write a fairy tale book? The non-diehard fan was interested. Although he was not a diehard fan of Yang Yi, he was a very curious person. After buying Drawing Sword, he also bought Shishi's bedtime stories along the way to save some postage. However, after the delivery of the book, a man in his early 20s held the fairy tale book and was fascinated by it. More than 20 well-written fairy tales fascinated him for 2 days and 2 nights, especially when he saw the story of Sleeping Beauty. His girly heart almost overflowed, and he almost could not control his desire to cross-dress. Such a good book must be promoted. But what if he did not know any children or single mothers? There was a way. He excitedly ran to the discussion area of the 2 serialized books, Yuzue and Prison Break, and posted, "You may not believe it, but Yang Yi has made me obsess with fairy tales again." The title was very eye-catching. The content was naturally to promote Shishi's bedtime stories by Yang Yi and recommended everyone to buy it at Sahara Online Mall. As soon as the post was posted, He was scolded badly by the readers who were waiting for the update. Are you a water army? How could Yang Yi have written a fairy tale book? I'm afraid it's a fake link. Don't click on it, be careful. This non-diehard reader's ID was naturally not as well known as Mu Yuqing's Mu Yuchen. Despite his strong arguments, it was still difficult to convince everyone. However, when Mu Yuqing saw this post, he vaguely remembered that when he went to Sahara Online Mall last month to study the other party's online shopping ideas, he saw the book Shishi's Bedtime Stories. It seemed that it was also promoted to be written by Yang Yi, but because it was children's literature, it did not arouse his interest. But now that Mu Yuqing was on holiday and had nothing to do, he simply followed the link given by this reader. It was really written by Yang Yi. Since he could not wait for the update, he would buy it and read it. Mu Yuqing jumped into the pit excitedly. A few days later, Mu Yuqing reposted the post of the non-diehard reader who had long disappeared and grandly recommended Shishi's Bedtime Stories to millions of readers who were waiting for the update. It's really written by Yang Yi. It has been confirmed with the customer service. Yang Yi compiled the bedtime stories he told his daughter into a book. It's full of father-daughter love. Although the sales of the book in physical bookstores are not ideal, the quality is definitely not ordinary. The plot is very exciting, and although the wording is simple, Yang Yi's writing is as good as ever. If I had to write a recommendation, I would say, it's suitable for both young and old. Although it's a fairy tale, adults will be fascinated by it. Mu Yuqing was really enthusiastically doing the free promotion work. With a familiar ID like him, many readers could not sit still. Damn, even old Mu has spoken. It seems that I have to buy it. Bye. Based on the fact that it's a real book written by Master Yang Yi, I'll definitely buy it. If I don't buy it, I'm not Yang Jiejun. I was wondering why Yang Yi was so weak in updating. It turns out that he has a daughter. Well, let's contribute to our daughter's milk powder money. Go away, who's your daughter? Yang Yi is my father. You guys continue chatting. I'll place the order first. Anyway, Yang Yi's character is guaranteed. You won't lose out or be cheated. Does anyone live near number 81 Hudong on Kaoniai Street in Beijing? Let's make up the bill together. Save on the postage. In the midst of laughter, Yang Yi's fans were about to bring the sales of Shishi's fairy tales to a magical number. Although this would no longer attract media attention and reports, these fairy tales would eventually spread. But this was all in the future. Chapter 231. The weather in Jiang City had become cold. A few days ago, the highest temperature had reached 30 degrees, but after a cool drizzle, the temperature suddenly dropped. Especially at night, Yang Yi, who lived next to the Grand Canal, could feel the coldness in the wind from the balcony. According to the 24 solar terms in traditional Chinese culture, now was the time when the cold dew had passed and the frost had not yet arrived. The weather turned cold, but there was no sign of winter. However, the unpredictable temperature was a nightmare for parents. Although Murphy went back to record songs and the shooting of the MV was scheduled, she still missed her daughter in her heart. Yang Yi was careless and didn't know anything. As a mother, she knew that Shishi was most likely to fall ill at this time of the year except spring. Therefore, she called Yang Yi almost every night and told him to take good care of Shishi. Usually, no matter whether it is hot or not, Shishi must wear more clothes. Don't let her jump on the bed naked after taking a bath at night. It's better to let her come out of the bathroom when she is wearing pajamas. In fact, not only did Murphy tell Yang Yi, but when Yang Yi picked up Shishi from kindergarten, Mr. Mu also told him to pay attention to the child's physical condition. If there was any abnormality, he must go to the hospital in time for treatment and communicate with the kindergarten. Perhaps it was because she practiced with her father every morning. Shishi, who kept exercising, was in good physical condition. After a few days, the little girl was still alive and kicking, which made Yang Yi feel a little relieved. However, Shishi's little friend still fell ill. Today, when Yang Yi picked up Shishi, the little girl sat in the child's seat in the back seat and said to her father unhappily, "Papa, Xiner didn't come to kindergarten today." "Why?" Yang Yi asked curiously. "I don't know, but Chun Shuryan said that Xian Air was sick. Her mom told her that, she said. Yang Yi understood that Lan Xian was sick and went to the hospital, which happened to be the hospital where Chun Shuryan's mother, who was a nurse, worked. Shishi, you have to be careful too. Don't kick the blanket off when I cover you with it at night. Yang Yi smiled and said, look, that girl didn't come yesterday. Today Xian Air is also sick. They probably caught a cold because they were disobedient. Shishi didn't understand the last sentence, but she didn't want to tell her father about it. The little girl pouted and said sadly, but Papa, I miss Xian Air. Will Xian Air come back? Cough cough. What do you mean by not coming back? Children's words carry no harm. Fortunately, there were no outsiders in the car. Yang Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said to Shishi, Shishi, how can you say that? You can't use the word, not coming back, casually. Why? The innocent little girl looked at her father with her big eyes in confusion. Because. Yang Yi paused for a moment. He was a little speechless. He really couldn't think of any reason, so he could only tell his daughter the truth. Because if someone doesn't come back, in some specific contexts, such as what you said just now, Xian Air is sick, it means that someone may die. She couldn't understand her father's long paragraph of words. What context? She couldn't understand. But she still understood the last sentence. The little girl's face suddenly turned pale. She waved her hand in horror and said, no, she didn't mean that Xian Air is dead. No. At first she blamed herself, but the little girl scared herself. She seemed to think that Lan Xian was really going to die. She pursed her lips and her eyes turned red. I didn't mean that. I hope you can pay attention to the words you use in the future. Don't cause misunderstandings. Yang Yi was driving, so he didn't pay attention. After a while, he heard the little girl in the back seat sobbing in a low voice. Hey, why are you crying? Yang Yi saw the little girl wiping her tears and looking pitiful in the rearview mirror. He quickly found a safe place to stop the car. Under her father's inquiry and comfort, she said in a choked voice, Papa, I'm afraid. What are you afraid of? Yang Yi asked confusedly. The little girl's skin was very white. When she cried, her eyes, nose, and mouth seemed to be stained with rouge. It was a sharp contrast with her white skin. It was lovely and pitiful. I'm afraid that Xian Air will die, the little girl said sadly. No, Xian Air is just sick. It's not a big deal. She will come to kindergarten soon after she recovers. She don't think so much. What's more, what you said just now wasn't true. Yang Yi hurriedly comforted. But I miss Xian. Cici sniffled and said with an aggrieved expression. She was really worried about Lan Xian. Well, wait a minute. Yang Yi thought for a moment. He took out his cell phone and dialed Lan Xian's father's number. After a while, Yang Yi hung up the phone. Under Shishi's expectant eyes, he said with a smile, well, Papa has asked clearly. Xian Air had a little fever yesterday, so she went to the hospital last night to get an injection. It's not a cold. At present, Xian Air is still resting at home. She may have to rest for a day tomorrow. But do you want to visit Xian Air? Papa can take you there after dinner. Shishi nodded happily. Yes, I want to go to Xian Air's house. I miss Xian Air so much. Just like that, it was decided. Yang Yi and Lan Kai agreed on a time. Lan Kai was not on a business trip. His daughter was sick, and as the big boss, he was also worried. He had to put his work aside to accompany his daughter. At around 7 in the evening, Yang Yi drove Shishi to the Lan family's big villa. Big brother Lan, your villa is really luxurious. Yang Yi could not help but sigh. No wonder he was a real estate tycoon. It's not bad, right? Haha, the next time these children have a gathering, they can come to my house to play. I don't dare to promise anything else, but I have enough snacks at home. Lan Kai laughed and brought Yang Yi and Shishi home. Xian Air. Shishi called out happily when she saw Lan Xian sitting on the sofa eating snacks and watching television. Shishi. Lan Xian heard the voice and quickly turned around. When she saw Shishi, she also jumped down excitedly. The two girls hugged each other excitedly. Lan Kai was afraid that Yang Yi would be worried. He smiled and said, Xian Air is almost recovered. Also, it's not a fever caused by the virus, so there's no need to worry about infection. I asked her mother to take an extra day off from the kindergarten, because I was afraid that she would catch a cold outside before she fully recovered. Xian Air, you scared me. I was so worried about you. She hugged Lan Xian and said with a pout. Hee. I don't know either. I feel so uncomfortable and sleepy today. Lan Xian giggled and pulled Shishi to sit down. The two girls sat side by side like good sisters. Are you better now? Shishi asked with concern. Lan Xian took out her snacks and ate them with Shishi. She pouted and said, Okay. I went to see a doctor yesterday, and then got an injection. It hurts so much. Ah. When Shishi heard the word needle, she remembered the cold shiny needle tip when she made dolls with her parents. Look. Lan Xian stretched out her left hand and turned it over. She pointed to a needle mark on the back of her hand and said, It's here. It hurts so much. Shishi carefully held Lan Xian's left hand and couldn't help but swallow. Does it really hurt? It hurts so much. I cried. Lan Xian proudly told her ugly story, as if she was a little hero. But then I fell asleep and it didn't hurt anymore. Yes. Cici still had a scared look on her face. After visiting Lan Xian, Shishi's mood finally improved a lot. However, she had a lot to tell her friends about this experience tomorrow. Chapter 232. Murphy had been back for a few days, but she didn't see Jean Yingming at the company. Murphy didn't think much about it in the first 2 days, because her work was arranged to discuss the plot of the music video corresponding to the songs with the music video director and scriptwriter invited by the company. Obviously, Murphy didn't know how to act. Even if the music video was shot, Murphy would still need to participate in some scenes, but that would only be her natural singing. The company would invite some young actors to play the lead role in the music video, but the script still needed Murphy's consent. However, after the general plot of the music video was discussed, Jean Yingming still didn't appear. Murphy finally couldn't take it anymore and asked Mo Xiaowan to ask. The people over there said that Sister Ling is helping you and Teacher Duan coordinate the schedule, saying that Teacher Duan will take over Teacher Jin's position. Not long after, Mo Xiaowan ran back happily and said with a smile, Look, sister, is the company starting to pay more attention to you? It was indeed very important. Not only was the shooting of the music video put on the schedule, but Niu Meiling also wanted to take care of Murphy's feelings. She wanted Teacher Duan Shurong, who was currently supervising Zhenzhen's new album, to come back and work with Murphy. Tianmei was showing her sincerity this time. Seeing that she was going to snatch Zhenzhen's producer back, Mo Xiaowan was happy. Her previous grievances were all cleared. She felt very good. However, Murphy didn't look very happy. She frowned and thought for a long time before saying to Mo Xiaowan, Xiaowan, go and tell Sister Ling that I won't change Teacher Jean. I'll work with Teacher Jean for this album. Ah. Mo Xiaowan was a little surprised. She asked puzzledly, Isn't Teacher Duan better? She's worked with you so many times. Don't you like Teacher Duan the most? I like Teacher Duan a lot. And I don't deny that Teacher Duan's level is indeed higher than Teacher Jin's. Of course, Teacher Jean isn't bad either. But the most important thing is that we can't go back on our words. Murphy said to Mo Xiaowan seriously, Teacher Jean gave me a lot of help in the early stages of this album, and he has completed the arrangement of most of the songs. How can we abandon him now? Mo Xiaowan hated it when Murphy tried to reason with her. She quickly grabbed Murphy's hand and said, No problem. Sister, you can choose whichever teacher you want to be your producer. I'll go tell Sister Ling. At Springfield Kindergarten, although it was the weekend, Shishi was still very happy because her little friend, Lan Xian, was finally back. Xian Air, I miss you so much. As soon as they saw each other, Shishi and the other little girls ran over happily and held Lan Xian's hand as they spoke excitedly. Haha, Shishi, didn't you come to my house last night? Yes. Then why do you still miss me? But you didn't come yesterday, so I missed you. Okay, But you didn't miss me when you came back to class after the holidays. Lon Xian said the holidays, but in fact it was just the weekends. Yes. Shishi anxiously explained. I miss you very much. Haha, well, Shishi, you are my best friend. Lon Xian happily hugged Shishi. Although she was not as tall as Shishi, Shishi also happily hugged Lon Xian and said, Xian, you are also my best friend. At this time, Chen Shiyin, who had just skipped by, turned her head and shouted, Shishi, how can you say that? I am your best friend. Shishi quickly waved her hand. She pulled Lon Xian and Chen Shiyin up and said, You are all my best friends. In fact, the scene of Chen Shiyin and Lon Xian fighting for affection often happened. Usually, at this time, Yang Luoqi's aggrieved voice would be heard. What about me? However, she did not appear today. Where is Qiqi? Shishi found this problem. They did not see Yang Luoqi until the class started. Fortunately, after Teacher Mu came in, he talked about the situation of the children who were absent today, including Yang Luoqi. Today we are very happy to see Xian come back healthy. However, you may have noticed that 3 children asked for leave today, and Qiqi. Teacher Mu named the 3 children, of course, not to blame them. Qiqi's father called to tell Teacher Mu that Qiqi woke up this morning with a cold and needs to go to the hospital to see a doctor. Shishi and Lon Xian turned their heads and looked at each other. Although the 2 girls were very obedient and did not whisper, they could see the surprise in each other's eyes. Qiqi is also sick. Recently, influenza has been frequent. Children, you must pay attention to keeping warm at home and in school. If you sneeze or have a runny nose, you must be sure to tell me or your parents quickly. Teacher Mu continued to remind them. However, the girls' minds were no longer on it. After a short lesson on learning pinyin, Shishi, Lon Xian, Nan Zhaoyu, and Chen Shiyin gathered together. Qiqi is sick. I want to see Qiqi. Lon Xian spoke first, holding Shishi's little hand. Because I'm sick, Shishi also came to see me. Qiqi is also my good friend. I want to see him. I want to go too. Shishi raised her other little hand high. She looked excited, as if she was signing up for a fun activity. That's great. I want to see Qiqi with Shishi. Lon Xian jumped happily. Yes, let's go together. Shishi also jumped. I want to go too, but my father may not be free. Nan Zhaoyu said with a little frustration. My mother can't drive. Then I can ask my papa to pick you up. Shishi's mind flashed and she quickly said, My papa's car is very big. He can take you and your mom. I also want to sit in Shishi's father's car. Lon Xian was a little envious. Of course, she didn't think that Shishi's father's car was very luxurious. There were more luxurious cars in her garage. The little girl simply felt that it was very interesting to sit with her friends. But my papa's car can't seat too many people. Shishi hesitated and said, My papa's car can seat 4 people. My papa said that he can't seat Xian. Well, I'll ask my father's driver to drive. Lon Xian didn't care. Chen Shiyin, do you want to go together? Shishi turned to look at Chen Shiyin, who had been silent all this time, and asked expectantly. Chen Shiyin pouted and pretended to reluctantly say, Well, I'll go too. But my father also has a car, so I don't need to sit in yours. Then let's pinky swear and go see Qiqi together. Shishi said happily. The several friends happily decided that they would go see each other tomorrow, which happened to be Saturday. However, they didn't know what they were doing. In the evening, when Yang Yi heard that Shishi wanted to visit her friends, he originally wanted to agree. But when he heard that Yang Luoqi had caught a cold, he shook his head. No. How can you do that? Colds are contagious. What if you catch a cold? Yang Yi explained. However, Shishi didn't listen to his explanation this time. She felt wronged and cried. They had all agreed to go see Qiqi. How could they break their promise? Shishi felt that her father had made her betray her friends, and she cried sadly. As she cried and cried, Yang Yi was swayed by his pitiful daughter's crying. He thought carefully and felt that a cold was not so terrible. Could it be that visiting a patient would cause her to be infected? It seemed that there was no such thing as a 100% probability, right? He himself had never caught a cold before. Moreover, in Yang Yi's heart, the two words trust were indeed very important. Whether it was his predecessor or his previous life, it didn't matter if he didn't keep his promise to others, but to his own brothers he must keep his promise. Thinking about it this way, Yang Yi also felt that he couldn't let Shishi go back on her word just because of a little difficulty. Look, let's go see Chi-Chi tomorrow. Daddy was wrong. Shishi, Daddy will take you to see Chi-Chi tomorrow. Yang Yi made a promise. Shishi smiled through her tears. Chapter 233. Shishi regarded this matter as an important task. The next morning, Yang Yi woke her up. When the little girl was still in a daze in the warm bed, she muttered to her father, "Papa, are we going to see Chi-Chi?" When they were having breakfast, Sisi pestered him again and asked, "Papa, when are we leaving?" Yang Yi, who didn't know whether to laugh or cry, had to clean up the tableware quickly and began to help Shishi contact the parents of several friends. The first one was of course to find Yang Guo to understand Yang Luoqi's current situation. Yang Guo was still very happy to see Shishi and the others come. After Yang Yi finished the phone call, he said to Shishi with a smile, "Good news, Chi-Chi's cold is now much better. She basically doesn't sneeze anymore, but she still has a little cough. Let's go to Chi-Chi's home to see her later." Okay. The little girl happily danced on the floor. She didn't even know where her heart had flown to. Later, Yang Yi called Lan Xian, Chen Shiyan, and Nan Zhaoyu's father one by one. Lan's Hao Kai was not at home. He was on a business trip again, but he knew about this matter and gave Yang Yi the phone number of his driver. Lan's Hao Kai attached great importance to his daughter. He didn't care too much about other children's illness. He just let Lan Xian visit them if she wanted to. Chen Shiyan had a setback. Chen Guoqiang helplessly told Yang Yi that her mother didn't allow Chen Shiyan to visit Shishi. Chen Guoqiang's idea was actually similar to Yang Yi's, but Chen Shiyan's mother was a nurse. She knew how terrible the flu was. No matter how much Chen Shiyan cried, she didn't allow it. As for Nan Zhaoyu, Yang Yi actually wanted his parents to be like Chen Shiyan's mother. After all, when he thought about how his daughter had taken the initiative to invite another boy to sit in her car, even though Yang Yi wouldn't go as far as to refuse his daughter, he still felt uncomfortable in his heart. However, Nan Zhaoyu's mother was very happy. She gave her home address to Yang Yi and assured him that Yang Yi could come and pick her son up anytime. Yang Yi did not know that Nan Zhaoyu's mother did not even consider whether the cold was contagious. She was worried that her son would stay at home and recite poems every day. She was worried that her son would become a bookworm like his father, and only get married when he was 40 or 50 years old. That would be terrible. Nan Zhaoyu's mother was already thankful that this brat could be invited out to play by a girl. How could she care about anything else? Of course, Yang Yi did not know what Nan Zhaoyu's mother was thinking. If he knew, he would not let Nan Zhaoyu get in his car. Well, Chen Shiyan can't go now, but Xian Air and Nan Zhaoyu can go. Yang Yi reported to Shishi. Chen Shiyan can't go? The little girl was a little disappointed, but she soon recovered her happy attitude because she had two friends. Then Papa, let's go quickly. Yang Yi drove Shishi to Nan Zhaoyu's house to pick up the little boy, and then to Lan Xian's house. I want to sit in Shishi's father's car. I don't want to sit in yours. Lan Xian saw that Nan Zhaoyu's mother did not follow, and there was an empty seat in the car, so she wanted to sit with her friends. Children can't sit in the front passenger seat, Yang Yi kindly advised. However, Lan Xian pouted and kept holding Shishi's little hand. Mr. Yang, why don't we let the children sit in the boss car? The driver gave a solution. He drove the Lan family's limousine out. Yang Yi temporarily parked his tyrant at the Lan family's house, and then everyone sat in the luxury car. Everyone was happy. Lan Xian, Shishi, and Nan Zhaoyu sat together. The three children were all excited, rolling and playing on the luxurious sofa in the limousine's limousine. Their little feet stepped on the leather sofa, causing creases to appear one after another. Yang Yi really couldn't bear to look at them. He helplessly turned his head away, allowing them to chatter and make a fuss. I told you that Chen Shiyan is a coward. For some reason, Lan Xian denounced Chen Shiyan, who was absent. She snorted and said. She doesn't even dare to come. If I knew earlier, I wouldn't have invited her. And then, Nan Xiaoyu was more shy and usually didn't speak loudly. However, when he was with his friends, he was slightly more lively. I really want Chen Shiyin to come too. Chen Shiyin, Xian Air, Nan Xiaoyu and Chi-Chi, let's play together. Shi said. You said too little. There's also your Shi. Lan Xian giggled. With the address, Lan's Haokai's driver quickly sent them to Yang Luoqi's house. Of course, Yang Guo was an ordinary university professor. It was impossible for her to live in a big villa like Lan's Haokai's. Their house was a small apartment with an elevator. The house was more than 100 square meters. It was neither big nor small. Yang Luoqi's mother opened the door for the children. Yang Luoqi's mother, Wu Yu, was an ordinary white-collar worker. However, she was delicate and beautiful. Her personality was similar to Yang Guo's. She was gentle and virtuous. It was said that she could dance. Yang Luoqi learned from her. When the door opened, Wu Yu was wearing an apron and preparing lunch. Note 1. Hello Chi-Chi's mother. Shi, Lan Xian, and Nan Xiaoyu had all seen her before. They crowded at the door and greeted her sweetly when they saw her. Wow, you're all here? Hello. Wu Yu laughed. Chi-Chi, come out quickly. Shi, Xian Air, and Xiaoyu are here to see you. The little guys swarmed in. Yang Yi also greeted Wu Yu and Yang Guo, who had just stood up from the sofa. At this time, the door of a room opened. A little girl ran out happily. Her little face, which was a little sickly, seemed to be a lot more energetic and rosy at the moment. Shi, Xian Air, Xiaoyu. Yang Luoqi happily took her friend's hand. Although she didn't shout like Shi and Lan Xian, she was still happy. Chi-Chi, I missed you so much. Shi's I missed you so much was almost her catchphrase. I missed you too, Chi-Chi. Are you feeling better? Lan Xian's voice was loud, and the whole room echoed with her voice. The two girls dominated Yang Luoqi, and Nan Xiaoyu could only watch with concern. Yes, but I still cough. It's a little uncomfortable. Yang Luoqi nodded, but still touched her throat and said softly. Her voice was still a little hoarse, but with the concern of her friends, Yang Luoqi felt that her illness was almost cured. Looking away from the children, Yang Guo smiled and said to Yang Yi, why don't you have lunch with me? How could I? There are so many people. Yang Yi was polite. Why are you being so polite? Yang Guo patted Yang Yi's shoulder and said with a smile. Well, you heard that you were coming, so she went to buy a lot of ingredients. She even thought of ways to make delicious food for the children. Lunch is already ready. Yang Yi, my cooking skills may not be as good as yours, but since you're here, you should try it and then give me some pointers. Wu Yu smiled generously. No. Yang Yi didn't refuse this time. He smiled and said, okay then this afternoon, we'll have lunch at your house. Thank you for your hard work, sister-in-law. Yang Yi went over to the children to announce the news. Shi and the others all cheered. Chi-Chi, we're going to eat at your house. Shi said happily. Your mom's cooking is also delicious. Hee, I'm also happy. Yang Luoqi, a quiet little girl, couldn't help but jump up and down with her friends. Chapter 234. At noon, Wu Yu's cooking skills were actually quite good. The little ones ate very happily. As they dug into the rice, their faces were covered with rice grains. Then they looked at each other and giggled at each other's embarrassing appearance. After the little ones finished eating, they threw down their bowls and chopsticks and ran to the living room to play. The adults were still eating slowly, watching the little ones play crazily while chatting. After Wu Yu asked Yang Yi for some tips on cooking, she couldn't help but be curious. Yang Yi, where are you from? How can you cook from everywhere? And from your accent, I can't tell where you're from. Yang Yi was in a trance for a moment. Then he smiled and said, I'm from Anqing, but I went to the southwest to serve as a soldier a long time ago. After I retired, I traveled all over the country, so my accent has long been mixed up. How can I tell? I can cook so many dishes, of course, I learned from eating and drinking all these years. In a trance, he thought of his hometown. His hometown was a poor mountain village in Pagua County, Pagua City, Onching Province. Because his predecessor didn't do well after he retired, he didn't have the face to see his hometown parents, so he didn't return home for 2 or 3 years. He only called back to say hello during the new year, and sent home the money he saved. Yang Yi was now rich and successful, but he didn't plan to go home. After all, he wasn't the real Yang Yi. He didn't know how to face the parents and siblings of this body. Out of the mentality of compensation, Yang Yi had been sending money home, thousands, tens of thousands, but he wouldn't give too much all at once. It wasn't that he was stingy, but mainly because his predecessor didn't usually give too much. If he suddenly sent hundreds of thousands, his parents and villagers in the poor mountain village would be scared and worry about him even more. Yang Yi felt that this matter had to be planned slowly. By the way, speaking of your accent, Yanghua, you're from Yu Province, right? And Wu Yu, I heard that you are also from Guangdong Province. Why did you come to work in Jiangnan? Yang Yi asked them in order to change the topic. Yes, we are from Yu Province. But because we were hired to study at the University of Jiangcheng, Wu Yu felt wronged. She quit her job and came to Jiangcheng with me. It can be considered a fresh start. Yanghua gently patted Wu Yu's hand and said. Wu Yu smiled and said, Yanghua has a doctorate and has even become a university teacher. As someone who has never been to university, of course I have to follow my teacher. So what if I didn't go to college? Yang Yi laughed. I didn't go to college either. I didn't even finish high school before I joined the army. Yes, I also said that it's nothing. Academic qualifications don't represent everything, but she still cares a little. Yanghua lovingly glanced at Wu Yu and explained to Yang Yi. Furthermore, it's not like Wu Yu didn't have the opportunity to go to university. It's just that she's an orphan, so she gave up on the notice and started working early. When Yang Yi heard this, his body couldn't help but tremble. Although he had parents in this body, he was indeed an orphan in his previous life. After knowing Wu Yu's background, Yang Yi inexplicably felt that Wu Yu was very close. Of course, there was no other meaning. Yang Yi also hid this emotion. Wu Yu didn't want to continue talking about this topic. She said reproachfully, Okay, let's not talk about me. Yang Yi, last time Yanghua said that you write novels. After the rearrangement, Murphy finally met Jean Yingming. Because she had spent too much time fighting with the company, Murphy didn't plan to rest this weekend, and continued to record songs. Sorry, Teacher Jean, I delayed your reunion with your daughter this weekend. When Murphy knew that the company had only made a new plan and didn't tell Jean Yingming, she didn't plan to tell him about the twists and turns behind the scenes. However, although Murphy didn't say it, Jean Yingming still vaguely sensed it. After all, he was much older than Murphy and had experienced the real storms of the entertainment industry. But smart people wouldn't voice out their suspicions, as long as the result was good. He sat there as usual and said with a smile, It doesn't matter. During this time, I've carefully studied all of Mr. Mu Xiang's works, and I've learned something. Oh, Teacher Jean, please tell me. Murphy was interested. I found that Mu Xiang's current works show 2 different styles of arrangement. One is very simple. For example, Long Time No See, Mr. Mu Xiang only used 2 instruments, piano and violin, to arrange the song. The other is like First Dream. The instruments used are more complex. In addition to the rich electric sound of the electronic organ, there are also instruments like drums. Jean Yingming said. Murphy nodded gently. She had listened to these songs carefully, so she could naturally distinguish them. Then I have a bold idea. Is it that among the songs written by Mr. Mu Xiang, the female songs tend to be more colorful, while the male songs like to be interpreted with simple instruments? Jean Yingming excitedly arranged the troops on the table with teacups. Murphy raised an objection to this. Teacher Jean, what about Across the Sea to See You? The accompaniment of this song is basically done by the guitar. And in my voice, the accompaniment of this song is also very simple. And it is also arranged by the piano. Yes, the question you raised is very interesting. Jean Yingming happily took out 2 cups and moved them from the side with more to the side with less. Then he said, I made a bold assumption. We're Across the Sea to See You, and in my voice, originally written by Mr. Mu Xiang for male singers. Based on the analysis of the lyrics, these two songs do not have obvious gender markers. Then I tried it in my own recording studio, and found that these two songs also have their own charm when sung by male singers. Jin Ingming seemed to have found a new world. He grinned from ear to ear. Of course, my singing is relatively ordinary, and I need to lower the key. So I was wondering if Mr. Mu Xiang had written these two songs from the perspective of a man, but accidentally found that these two songs were more suitable for you, Murphy, so he changed the arrangement behind the scenes. Jin Ingming said with some regret, "Unfortunately, this is just my personal guess. If I could communicate with Mr. Mu Xiang face to face, I would really like to discuss it with him." Although this research was not particularly meaningful, in the eyes of Jin Ingming, who was obsessed with music, it was no less than playing an escape room puzzle game. There will be a chance in the future. Although Mr. Mu Xiang hides his identity, he is in Jiang City after all. Teacher Jin, maybe you will have a chance to meet him. Murphy could only comfort Jin Ingming. This is nothing. I just hope that Mr. Mu Xiang can produce more works, so that I can have more materials to study. Jin Ingming laughed heartily. Sorry for nagging so much with you. Let's get to work quickly. That you're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.